Emperor of the Desert. This video is purely for entertainment and does not infringe on copyrights or laws. The rights to the novel and image belong to the original author. We do not claim ownership. Don't like waiting and want to listen to this fanfic in full now? Subscribe to our Patreon, where you'll find the best fanfics. Chapter 151 Bloodline Upgrade. When Shadow Futaba hid in the pyramid, Qin Ren immediately left the impression space and found a place to open the gold coin bag and upgrade the bloodline level before running back to clean the pyramid. You obtained 723 yellow sand gold coins. You obtained. When Qin Ren opened an E-level bag mixed in with hundreds of yellow sand bags, he immediately collected 10,000 gold coins, but he still had to open them all. Bounty: 9,634 yellow sand gold coins. 12,869, G-level certificates, 16, 24, F-level certificates, 15, 17, E-level certificates, 4. As for what attributes to upgrade, needless to say, the bloodline attributes will naturally benefit the most. Bounty: 12,869 yellow sand gold coins, 2,869, F-level certificates, 17. 7. Bloodline talent middle dot ascending bloodline, F. Bloodline talent middle dot eye of the desert, E. Qin Ren was in the yellow sand space, and a blazing light ignited a flame on his body. Then, his entire body burned to ashes, leaving only a ball of orange-red light, a symbol that looked like the sun and an eye. The next moment, the symbol flew to the huge sun disk and merged with it. Lines spread out from the center of the sun disk, and instantly imprinted complex and mysterious lines on the sun disk. After Qin Ren's body was completely integrated with the sun disk, as if celebrating his birth, the entire yellow sand space was filled with endless wind and sand. Around the sun disk, hundreds of buildings made of sand rose from the ground. Outside the building circle, in the endless sand dunes, countless huge sand rolls rolled up on the boundless sand dunes and extended to the sky 10,000 meters high. One by one, the yellow sand soldiers condensed and appeared, kneeling deeply in front of the location of the sun disk. The fire dragon Purgatory, who was called back to the yellow sand space when Qin Ren upgraded his bloodline, saw this scene and couldn't help but widen his eyes, looking at the solemnly kneeling yellow sand soldiers around him. Although he didn't know what was going on, he also knelt down. Unfortunately, its body is no longer in human form. It's better to say it's lying than kneeling. Third Eye 2, who was originally sleeping soundly in the Holy Grail of Harmony, also opened her eyes, blinked her clear eyes, looked at the sun disk, and then clapped her hands happily, babbling, and after clapping a few times, she lay down again and continued to sleep soundly. Blood talent middle dot eye of the desert, E. Unique passive power of the desert, able to control the wind and sand around, and manipulate them to move and change. The higher the mana and magic power, the stronger the control and the number of controls, the greater the consumption, the farther the distance. The normal power is 5F, affected by magic power. The maximum additional magic power is 5F. Unique passive scorching punishment. Look directly at the target and burn the target. The longer the distance, the greater the consumption. The normal power is 5F, affected by magic power. The maximum additional magic power is 5F. Health plus 2F, health regeneration plus 2F, armor plus 2F, attack power plus 2F, attack speed plus 2F, mana plus 5F, mana regeneration plus 5F, magic power plus 5F, magic resistance plus 5F, movement speed plus 2F, attack range plus 5,000 yards. In addition to the changes in the description, there are also comprehensive increases in attributes. In Qin Ren's own perception, he rushed towards the sun, and when he approached the sun, he turned into a firebird, then flew back and landed in the sun disk. When he opened his eyes, he realized that his position was a little strange. How did I become a sun disk? Where is my body? Body. When he had this thought, the patterns on the disk lit up, condensing into a golden glow, and gathered in front of him to form a tall human figure, a tall young man with brilliant golden hair. It was the shape designed by Qin Ren for the protagonist of the game. The image of Izir Qin. When the human form was completely condensed and the golden light faded, Qin Ren felt that he seemed to have two bodies. The sun disk was also his body, and the body condensed by the golden light was also his body, but it was much weaker. It was considered an incarnation? Qin Ren found a suitable word from his memory. After that, he looked at the countless sand rolls connecting the sky and the earth in the yellow sand space, and clenched his hands. Boom! Exclamation mark! All the sand rolls exploded instantly and dissipated endlessly. On the desert, the countless yellow sand soldiers were still kneeling. Qin Ren sorted out his chaotic thoughts, and then observed these yellow sand soldiers. They had no movements at all, and no soul will. They were just empty shells. Turning his head, Qin Ren's eyes were cast on the sun disk. The feeling of looking at myself is really weird. It feels like the left eye looking at the right eye. After shaking his head, Qin Ren looked at the sun disk carefully. The strange pattern on it reminded Qin Ren of something. The Eye of Horus. As the name suggests, it is the eye of the falcon-headed god Horus, also known as the Eye of Yagat, Wejatai, which has a sacred meaning and represents the blessing of the gods and the supreme monarchy. When Horus, the son of Osiris and Isis, grew up, his left eye was taken away by Set in a fight with the god Set who killed his father. Horus' left eye represents the moon and his right eye represents the sun. After his left eye was taken away, the moon god Khans naturally had to help. After a desperate fight, Horus finally defeated Set and took back his left eye. After that, Horus presented this lost eye to his father, the god of the underworld Osiris, and called it the Eye of Horus. And Horus only had one right eye left. The eye on the sun disk does not look like a left eye, but a right eye. The Eye of Horus is not only a symbol of Horus, but also a symbol of the sun god Ra. Qin Ren was slightly puzzled. In several dynasties of ancient Egypt, the status of Ra had various changes. During the Egyptian dynasty in 3100 BC, Ra merged with the god Horus to become Ra-Harahuti. Ra is Horus on two horizons, ruling the sky, the earth and the underworld. It was during this period that the Eye of Horus also became a symbol of Ra, and the image of Horus with the moon in his left eye and the sun in his right eye also appeared during this period. This image of myself now. After thinking for a long time, Qin Ren, who still couldn't figure out the situation, shook his head, and his will descended into the body of Kurisu Akatsuki in the real world. Because of the huge improvement in physical attributes, when his will descended on Kurisu Akatsuki's body, the huge power bonus also came to Kurisu Akatsuki's body. So small, Qin Ren felt like he was trapped in a narrow piece of clothing. Subconsciously, he stretched out his body. The body creaked, as if it had exploded. The original black hair instantly turned red and then golden, and the 1.75-meter tall body was assimilated by the Qin people's consciousness incarnation Izir Qin, and was raised to 1.88 meters. The face also changed. Before it was a fusion of Kurisu Akatsuki and Izir Qin, now it has completely turned into Izir Qin. P.S. I was watching the video and found that there was no update. Ahem. This is just an accident. Chapter 152, Obelisk's Giant God Soldier. Purgatory, come. Qin Ren made a move, and countless quicksands condensed in front of him, forming the body of the Corona Dragon. When he saw the Corona Dragon condensed in the yellow sand space, he immediately drilled in skillfully. Lord Hades, the Fire Dragon Purgatory, who was possessed by the Corona Dragon, immediately turned to Qin Ren and said, and the thick dragon tail kept shaking. Yeah, Qin Ren nodded. Purgatory's skillful movements made him stunned and quite amused. This guy is becoming more and more like a dog. However, with the amount of sand that can be controlled now, it can be made bigger. A Corona Dragon more than 10 meters long? No, a Corona Dragon is completely no problem. Let's talk about it later. The moves to be used later require the control of a large amount of sand. Thinking, Qin Ren turned his sight to the other side. Here I go again. Qin Ren, who once again entered the impression space of Sakura Futaba, looked at the pyramid in the distance and said in his heart, this time, the 1,000 soldiers he could create were not completely empty shells. His mana value is now 6.5 F, which is 65 G, nearly 10 tons. He can now make 100 fully solid yellow sand soldiers weighing 100 kilograms. If he slightly reduces the amount of sand used, and only uses 1/10 of the original amount for each soldier, he can build a 1,000-man army. If he only makes the skin like before, he can make 6 or 7,000. Moreover, Qin Ren raised his palm, and the surging mana rotated in his palm, forming a high-speed vortex. In terms of power, it is nearly 5 times stronger than the previous Qin. More importantly, his current Eye of the Desert is not only able to control sand and gravel, wind, sand, even airflow has been included in his control range. Without hesitation, Qin Ren raised his hand and swung, breath of the underworld god. The surging mana rolled up the wind and sand, and in an instant, a giant sand roll with a diameter of 10 meters and a height of 150 meters rushed towards the pyramid in a straight line. In just a dozen seconds, the giant sand roll had arrived in front of the pyramid. As the distance was getting longer and longer, when it was only 100 meters away from the pyramid, the diameter of the sandstorm had expanded to 50 meters and the height was over 300 meters. The giant sandstorm that connected the sky and the ground roared and crashed into the pyramid. Those cognitive monsters that were blocking the road and had no time to escape were sucked up from the ground by the violent sandstorm and pierced through their bodies by the high-speed rotating sharp airflow and gravel. This kind of AO is perfect for clearing out the miscellaneous soldiers. One sandstorm can clear a large area, and with the current mana recovery speed, it is completely feasible for him to throw out a sandstorm every few seconds. At present, with his mana value, he does not take into account the mana recovery at all, and all skills are thrown out with full force. Calculated based on the average 5% of mana for each skill, he can throw out 20 sandstorms in a short time. Considering the mana recovery, one every few seconds, and throwing out 40 in 500 seconds is not a problem at all. And, Qin Ren clenched his right hand, wind and sand, obey my command and speed up the rotation. The sandstorm, which was originally spinning at a speed exceeding the speed of a level 14 typhoon, accelerated again. The terrifying wind and sand ripped the pyramid apart in an instant. The huge rocks on the pyramid collapsed, and countless small stones were peeled off in the sand swirls and carried into the air by the swirling sand. For a moment, a violent train of sand fell in the entire demon palace. Qin Ren looked at the countless gravel falling from the sky and was slightly stunned. This method is very good. While thinking, he raised his hands and clenched his right hand. The sand rain that was drifting downward suddenly accelerated. New move. Heavy sand rain. No, bullet rain. God's punishment rain. Gaara also has a move called sand rain, but Gaara's sand rain is not used for attack. The main way of attack is to use the sand that falls on the ground to condense and then launch an attack. And Qin Ren's move is to accelerate the falling sand and increase its power, just like hail. Qin Ren thought of something similar, but the power of this move is much stronger than hail. Around the pyramid, the group of cognitive monsters like the sand bandits who had retreated when they saw the sand rolls, when they felt the sand falling, they were either confused but did not take it seriously, or were simply too scared to pay attention. In shock, the sand penetrated their bodies from the top of their heads and turned into fragments and disappeared. Qin Ren certainly would not waste too much mana to accelerate and increase the power of all the falling gravel. Just like the sand rain, the other sand only increased the materials he could control, and the only ones that increased the power and turned into bullets were those on the target's head. Controlling too much sand would disperse the power. How could he, who had used his ability so many times, do something that would waste the power of sand? The supply of mana had long been stopped, and the sand rolls, which relied entirely on the airflow formed by the sand rolls themselves to tell the airflow to spin, had become very weak due to the long-term collision with the pyramid. When Qin Ren saw the surroundings clearly with the help of the sun disk and confirmed that there were no cognitive monsters outside the pyramid, he stepped on the back of Purgatory and flew above the pyramid, and then dispersed the sand rolls. In the past, he could only control sand, and this sandstorm could not be stopped directly by him. But now, he can directly control the wind to rotate in the opposite direction, so he can stop the sand. Now, he wants to try a new move, a move that he couldn't use before because the amount of sand he could control was too small, but now that he can control more sand, he can try it. The first move is, the phantom god is coming, the giant god of obelisk. With his fists clenched, Countless quicksands gathered around Qin Ren's body, and a huge arm as big as a truck stretched out from the ground. The fierce, steel-like angular body was like a god sleeping in the desert. The giant god, which was more than 30 meters tall and as tall as a 10-story building, rose from the ground. And Qin Ren, his body was embedded in the head of the giant god. Because a lot of sand was needed, even the quicksand on the body of the Corona dragon possessed by Purgatory was extracted, leaving only a palm-sized desert dragon for Purgatory to possess. This is Lord Hades. Purgatory, which was only the size of a palm, flapped its small wings and flapped its wings on the shoulders of the giant god. It's still not enough. I hope to get equipment that increases mana by controlling the amount of sand. Mana represents the amount of sand that can be manipulated. Attributes and equipment that increase mana are very important. Through the sun disk embedded in Purgatory's body, Qin Ren can fully observe Obelisk's giant god. Now the sand that can be manipulated is still not enough. 10 tons of sand condensed into a giant 30 meters high, and there is still nearly 1/3 of the hollow area. He used a multi-layered triangular pyramid structure to support it. Although it can't be compared with a solid one, such a structure is difficult to break. Although it is not solid, it looks very imposing. His imposing value is rising. Looking at the pyramid, Qin Ren said loudly, and his magnificent voice resounded throughout the pyramid, "I said before, no one can refuse me a second time." In the pyramid, the shadow Futaba looked at the giant god standing outside the pyramid through the gap destroyed by the sand roll. His eyes widened, and his astonishment was beyond words. P.S. The Wi-Fi crashed at 11:30 last night and was not working until the morning. My phone was out of payment again and I had no idea that I was using Wi-Fi the whole time, so I spent most of the day without any internet connection. Chapter 153, It seems that I have raised a strange creature. Chapter 152, Wrong Number, Mom. In the field of vision, along with the silent whisper of the shadow Xuan, Qin Ren immediately heard a strange voice. The voice calling for a loved one did not have a touching meaning, but fear and heaviness. The heavy breathing was only dull and oppressive. Whoosh, whoosh. The flapping of wings was like the sound of a broken drum. Qin Ren, who had merged with the giant god, turned his head. A figure flew over from the edge of the desert. The huge beast had a pair of huge wings on its back. Its body was similar to the shape of a lion, but its head was not a lion's, but a female's head. Although it was not as tall as the giant god, which was 30 meters tall, it was also 7 or 8 meters tall, and the pair of huge wings that flapped were also 16 or 17 meters wide. In the blink of an eye, it had already flown close to Qin Ren. Sphinxes have human faces and lion bodies. There are 3 types of sphinxes. The first type is winged bulls. The second type is a winged lion with a goat's head or a winged griffin with a lion's body. The latter is also known as a griffin. The third type is a lion with a human head. The sphinxes that people usually call are all the third type. However, the Egyptian sphinx was originally a sacred guardian beast of tombs, and its head was a combination of a male head and a winged lion. However, when the image of the sphinx was spread to Europe, it became a combination of a female head and a winged lion in Greek mythology, and its image changed from sacred to evil. In P5, the sphinx with her mother's head, which represents Futaba's anger, also undoubtedly represents evil. When flying towards the pyramid, she did not pay attention to the giant soldiers summoned by the Qin people, but shouted in a sharp and crazy voice, "Futaba, you killed me." The voice was filled with endless anger and malice. "Shut up, little thing." Bang, bang. The giant god took 2 heavy steps forward, and his heavy body made the ground tremble. With just 2 steps, the terrifying tremor caused the pyramid behind him to tremble slightly, and the violent gale blew down several sand buildings 100 meters away. Accumulate power. The giant god clenched his fists, accumulating power, waiting for the Sphinx to fly. This terrifying power also startled the Sphinx, whose original target was only Shadow Futaba, and she quickly flapped her wings and was about to rise to the highest point. However, at this moment, she felt a storm coming from above, and the intense wind pressure made her body lose balance and unable to fly up. What? However, she did not have time to think carefully. Bang! The giant god's right fist had already hit hard, and the terrifying power swept through the air and hit her with a rumbling sound. "Stay away from me!" Sphinx roared at Qin Ren with a sharp whistle. Her unbalanced body did not try to maintain balance, but vibrated her wings vigorously, and the terrifying air waves were swept out by her wing. But it was useless. The terrifying storm did not have any effect on the fists of the giant god soldier. In fact, the storm instantly dissipated when it approached the giant god soldier's fists. However, she did not give up. In the roar, Sphinx's eyes were red, and she exerted all the power she could use. Bang, bang, bang. Frost, lightning, flames, and many attacks exploded on the right fist of the giant god soldier. The successive explosions blew the sand and gravel condensed right fist into dust, but it was useless. Dozens of explosions only blew off 1/3 of the giant god soldier's fist, and this 1/3 condensed back in the next second, gradually filling the missing part. It was impossible to stop it, even if they could break through the defense. The damage caused by the opponent's huge body was enough to make the Sphinx's despair. In fact, because the gravel healed quickly, by the time the fist reached her, it was already unscathed. Boom! The right fist of the giant god, which was as big as a truck and had fully recovered, hit the back of the Sphinx heavily. Her body was like a balloon that had been subjected to a huge force, and a large part of it was dented. Then, following the trajectory of the giant god's right fist, it flew straight out and was smashed into the ground. Not dead yet? Qin Ren was slightly surprised. Although he did not use all his strength, he had used at least half of the punch just now, which was equivalent to the force of a 5-ton object. However, it was almost enough. The body of the Sphinx lying in the sand pit was distorted to the extreme. If you don't look carefully, you can't tell that this mass is a Sphinx. Just one more cut will be okay. But you can't make up the cut now. If you make up the cut now, the magic palace will collapse. Who knows if finishing off the enemy now will break the sealed sun disk. When the sealed sun disk is found, the Sphinx will be killed, and then the yellow sand space will be called upon to devour the demon palace. At least we must ensure that we can get the sun disk. It's really fast to leave this world in less than a week. With a sigh in his heart, Qin Ren turned around and looked at the pyramid. The shadow Futaba standing in the pyramid stared at the scene blankly, and looked behind him blankly at the Sphinx that was smashed into the ground. "Mom, that's really not your mom. That's just your imagination. Your mom died a long time ago." Why does this sentence sound like an insult? Reaching out, Qin Ren grabbed a huge rock and threw it back. The giant rock weighing 3 tons was thrown out by Qin Ren like a pebble, and fell heavily on the ground, shaking off a circle of gravel. The Qin man who was possessed by the giant god soldier had an inexplicable feeling. It feels like a child taking apart building blocks. The huge pyramid was dismantled by the Qin man in a few moves. Then I found it. A sun disk was embedded in the floor tiles at the bottom of the pyramid, looking like a relief. But the Qin man could clearly feel that this thing belonged to him. "Is this your thing?" a voice suddenly sounded. Shadow Futaba stood beside his palm. From the perspective of the giant god soldier, Shadow Futaba was smaller than his thumb. "This thing is not mine." Shadow Futaba's eyes, which were shining with a faint golden light and were similar to snake eyes, looked at the sun disk embedded in the floor tiles of the lower layer of the pyramid. Those eyes looked exactly the same as the snake crown on her head. "You are very calm." Qin Ren was slightly surprised by Shadow Xuang Ai's fearless attitude, and then he opened his mouth and said to the other party, "I said, I'm here to find it." At this time, Qin Ren heard a voice. "Dad, I want her. Can you give it to me?" Before Qin Ren could react, he saw a naked petite woman with the heads of a sheep, a human, and a cow, crawling out from his tiger's mouth. The curled snake tail swung left and right, and then the whole person turned into a 3-headed giant snake, swallowing Shadow Xuang Ai into its stomach in one bite. What's going on? Before Qin Ren could react, she returned to her human form. Her pair of light eyes looked around, and when she saw the Sphinx, her eyes lit up again. "Dad, I want this too." After saying that, she didn't wait for Qin Ren to answer, and twisted her body, and once again turned into a 3-headed giant snake, flying towards the place where the Sphinx was stabbed into the ground. Opening her huge mouth, as if to swallow. Chapter 154 End. Qin Ren did not stop her. Qin Ren just watched her swallow the sphinx that he had smashed into a shapeless form. No, a shapeless form, and then restore her human form. Burp burp burp. Her charming face showed a trace of satisfaction, and her three heads burped at the same time. After burping, she floated to Qin Ren's left shoulder, stood next to Purgatory and said, "Dad, I want more." The energetic voice made Qin Ren slightly stunned, and then he seemed to remember something, and turned his sight back to the yellow sand space, the cognitive light balls that he had obtained by slaughtering a large number of cognitive monsters. None of them were left. "You are really good at eating." Qin Ren looked at Third Eye 2 speechlessly. Speaking of which, her size, because it still looks very small from this perspective, and the shadow Futaba and Sphinx being eaten made him a little unresponsive. When he reacted, he found that it had not changed. That's not right. When she turned into a three-headed giant snake just now, she only smiled a little bit compared to the obelisk giant god soldier he condensed. Why is she still only the size of a palm when she returns to human form? Forget it. It doesn't matter. Purgatory can change her body shape at will in the yellow sand space, and 32 can change her body shape in reality. No, this is not reality. Impression space. 32 was born after the fragments of impression space and the harmony Holy Grail merged. In a sense, she is also the same as cognitive monsters. And what is the reason why she can change her body shape? Lord Hades, this place is going to collapse. At this time, Purgatory on his shoulder suddenly reminded. Yeah, Qin Ren nodded. Although it happened suddenly, there was nothing he could do. Yellow sand space, swallow this place. The moment the main body that had merged with the sun disk conveyed its thoughts to the yellow sand space, countless quicksands on the ground rolled up. A huge quicksand vortex connected this desert with the yellow sand space, and rolled the sand here into the yellow sand space. Qin Ren also kept his eyes on the sealed sun disk, and if there was any movement, he would immediately catch it. He wanted to let the yellow sand space plunder this desert magic palace as much as possible. As long as he touched the sealed sun disk, he would most likely be teleported to the next world immediately. Although he wanted to leave, he also wanted to get as much benefit as possible. This world is not much better than the Magic Index. The Magic Index has demons, and there are various true gods in the Persona series. It's not about cognitive monsters, but gods like Philemon, the lord of the subconscious space, and Igor, the false god of the impression space. They create a space at any time, destroy humans and reshape the world. In the later stage of P5, the impression space will erode the real world and merge with the real world. Not to mention the distant past, P4 and P3 are also the development of gods trying to destroy humans and reset the world. These worlds are too dangerous. It's better to leave early. While Qin was staring at the sealed sun disk, ready to touch it, 32 sat on Qin's shoulders, shaking her long legs, with her long snake tail coiled around her calves, showing her temptation. Beside her, the fire dragon Purgatory stared at 32 in front of her without saying a word. Her seductive body was undoubtedly a symbol of lust. The slightly grayish-white sheep head on her right was blurry and illusory, as if it could change at any time. Vanity. The bull head on the left shoulder had eyes that were gradually turning red, as if burning with flames. Anger. All right. When the yellow sand space was about to swallow up the entire desert magic palace, and the sealed sun disk fell due to the collapse of the ground, Qin grabbed it. In an instant, a wave of distorted time and space appeared. Qin, Purgatory and 32 were all taken back by the yellow sand space and disappeared together in the distorted wave. Without his host, Kurisu Akatsuki's body began to shrink, from 1.88 meters tall to 1.75 meters tall, and his golden hair returned to black. After a long time, he opened his eyes. Where is this? At the same time, in the deepest part of the impression space, an old man in a black suit who looked like a goblin raised his head. Are you finally gone? The false god Igor, his voice echoed throughout the space. Behind him was a dark, huge golden holy grail. On both sides of the holy grail, a team of hands stretched upwards, as if isolating and protecting. At this time, a distortion suddenly appeared in the air, and a black crow flapped its wings and landed on the Holy Grail. The false god Igor looked at the crow, then knelt on one knee respectfully. "My lord." Hearing his words, the crow opened its mouth and a cold voice rang out, "I copied this world and created you, not for people to sing praises here. It seems that it is better for me to directly resurrect you all to Beowulf than you." "But, that person," the false god Igor hesitated, "you don't need to care about it. That is a gamble you shouldn't get involved in." The crow's dark eyes looked at him, and then looked behind him. Lust, vanity, anger. "He only took 3 fragments?" "Yes, my lord, I have prepared 9 fragments, but the other party seems to be too cautious." The false god Igor bowed his head. "Forget it. The purpose of creating him is just to tear the source of the 9 pillars. As for how far he can tear it, it doesn't make any difference. The bigger the tear, the more he can get. What he can't get is also his own doing." The crow said indifferently, "You immediately start to reverse the world and erase all traces of his stay. Don't let the 9 pillars kill him. Is that all?" The false god Igor was a little confused. "Don't you need me to protect him?" "No. With the power of my lord, no one can track him. Not even the 9 pillars." The crow glanced at him. "Even if you preserve all his footprints and hand them over to the 9 pillars, it will not have any effect. This is the place covered by the wings of my lord. If the 9 pillars really dare to break in, we will be happier if you come to our door. There is no need to pry the dry tortoise shell." The last sentence made the false god Igor sweat. "Focus on reversing the world and be your creator. This world was created for you to manage. If you can't manage it well, you can just wait for death." The crow flapped its wings and dissipated into the air. Seeing the other party disappear, the false god Igor breathed a sigh of relief. The bed of the supreme rulers. After sighing, he shook his head, and with a wave of his hand, a mask appeared on his face. The next moment, his figure twisted and turned into a blue butterfly, flying out of the impression space. Kurisu Akatsuki, who was walking on the road, turned his head to look at the blue butterfly that flew over his shoulder. The next second, his body began to disintegrate and dissipated into countless fragments. On the other side, at Sakamoto Rigi's home, "Morgana, do you think Akatsuki will be surprised? We prepared this." "What Akatsuki? What are you talking about?" Akatsuki? Did I say that?" "I'm talking about Takamaki." "Takamaki, Miss Shing?" "I think so." P.S. Press the vote. The next volume is My Hero Academia. Chapter 155. It's okay even if my brain is missing. Who was the one who changed the hero's name just now? The one just now? The Sand Hero, Snatch. His original name seems to be Hinagawa Sand? It's him. He's here to change his hero name? What did he change it to? Let me see. It seems to be Izil. Desert Hero Izil. Izil? Does this name have any special meaning? I don't know. I heard it's related to the recent hero killer incident. And Snatch seems to be the victim. The child of the friend of the leader of my friend's classmate's office is a doctor in the hospital. I heard from him that Snatch lost his memory after waking up. And I heard from him that the other party wanted to distinguish his past self from his present self. What kind of weird reason is this? No matter, it sounds cool anyway, like the number 2 flame hero Endeavor, whose original name is Gakuenji. I know this. And All Might. His name is Yagi. Outside the door, a blond man shook his head as he listened to the discussion behind him. The world he is in now, if I'm not mistaken, is My Hero Academia. In this world, 80% of people will awaken their own superpowers, which are called personalities. The first case is a glowing baby in Qin City, China. As for where Qin City is, Chongqing, the Japanese read and write the heavy in Chongqing as heavy in weight. There is a place in Japan called Shinsanyō region, also known as China region. There is a saying that the mythological concept Awahara China in Noragami refers to this Shinsanyō region. Some people say that in fact, Qin City, China refers to the China region in Japan, but this China region itself has only 5 counties under its jurisdiction and does not include any city-level units. In other words, it is a unit close to a prefecture-level city. Of course, this is not important. This world is a heroic world of the same type as DC, Marvel, One Punch Man, Tiger and Bunny and other heroic works. In this world, At least 8 generations have passed since the first case of personality to the present. The human society that has awakened personality has developed from the initial chaos to the present and has become well organized. Each country and region has a set of regulations and laws to manage those who have awakened their personalities, and the use of personalities is regulated. However, there are also people who abuse their personalities, resulting in various cases from time to time. In such an environment, a concept, or a profession, hero has emerged. They are allowed by the government to use their personalities to help suppress and arrest criminals, rescue and so on. In this world where 80% of humans have personalities, their personalities are correctly and effectively used in all directions of society. People whose personalities are generators can work in power plants, and people with personalities related to water will get a job by the river or the sea or do firefighting in the city, etc. Heroes have various offices, and after completing commissions from various places, they get their due rewards. Heroes, here, are not a concept of selflessness and selflessness, but a profession. Professional heroes. Heroes have become professional, so naturally there are schools that teach how to use personalities and how to regulate power. My Hero Academia is a story that unfolds from the perspective of students. Qin Ren appeared in this world after grabbing the sealed sun disk. The person he possessed had a personality of partial desertification. It could turn about half of the body into sand and dust. After possessing this person, he was quite surprised, because, in the original book, this person only appeared once and then died. He was a minor character. Qin Ren certainly knew who this person was, but because this person's ability was pitifully weak compared to the Sandman and the Sand Crocodile, he did not add his ability to the exchange list at all. Compared with partial desertification, complete desertification is really pitifully weak. And this person, it was not after Qin Ren possessed him that he lost his memory, but before Qin Ren possessed him, this person had already lost his memory. The reason is that part of his brain was missing. That's right, the upper half of this person's sandy body. Part of his brain was intercepted by someone. I don't know if it was locked up or went somewhere, and when he recovered, his brain was gone, and then he lost his memory. It's not just amnesia. It can be said that he is already dead, in a state of dying. When Qin Ren possessed him, he was also very speechless about this situation. Qin Ren pulled out a piece of paper from his pocket. This is what he has been busy with these days. The early story of Hero Academy mainly takes place in New E, high school. Since he came to this world, of course he wants to get involved. This world does not have the gods like Magical Index or P5 who exterminate humans and reset the world at any time. Compared with the previous two worlds, it can be said to be extremely safe. It is no problem to live a leisurely retirement for decades. As for the way to get involved, with his current height of 1.88 meters and nearly 30 years old, he is basically isolated from students. No, at the beginning, when he possessed, his whole body twisted into the same appearance as Izir Qin, but the person he possessed was actually in his 30s or 40s, so he adjusted himself and adjusted Izir Qin's young appearance to nearly 30 years old. Then, he found various ways to get himself to UE. However, it is too difficult to be a teacher at UE, high school. After much fussing, he finally became a sloppy man with messy long black hair and stubble on his chin at UA, high school. He touched the railing-shaped goggles on his neck. Snatch, he is coming to UA to recuperate. When did UA become a sanatorium? Recovery girl. Are you kidding? Teacher Aizawa. His current hero name is Izir. He encountered a hero killer and was almost killed. He might have a psychological trauma. Hearing his words, the short old lady next to him who was dressed in pink elderly clothes put down the documents in her hand. Professional heroes are bound to encounter dangers. The sloppy male teacher called Aizawa looked at the photo on the file. By the way, why is his face different? Part of his head disappeared, and after it was reassembled, it became like this. The old lady spread her hands. He said so himself. Part of the head is missing? Well, according to the surveillance, the enemy he encountered seemed to have a similar personality to teacher number 13. The part of his head was sucked in by a black vortex when it turned into sand. Thanks to book friends Fast 9 and I don't know how I am for the reward of 100 starting coins. If you're listening to this novel on a channel other than Fanfic World, it means they downloaded and uploaded it without effort. We cordially invite you to visit our channel, Mundo Fanfic Novelist. There you'll find the original version of this story and you can explore many other novels of various genres. We are waiting for you to immerse yourself in a world of incredible novels. Chapter 156, The Might of the Jungle. Dongying Qin Ren walked leisurely on the road, looking for the location of Dongying High School. The first two worlds were so dangerous, and he finally came to a world without demons and gods. A leisurely life suits his personality. Retirement. To be honest, he is not a very motivated person. If he has time, he would rather play games and sleep in all day, rather than work overtime to get overtime money to pay more mortgage. Wait a minute. What happened up ahead? It seems someone is robbing money. Robbing money? Is it another villain? Enemy? This is gigantic. It has a similar quirk to the newcomer mountain lady, right? With this kind of quirk, she should be very popular in all hero agencies. Why did she choose the wrong path of being a robber? Who knows? Is that Jungle God? A young and powerful hero who is very popular recently. His quirk allows him to extend branches like a tree. Listening to the discussions in his ears, Qin Ren raised his head and looked forward. A huge humanoid creature nearly 20 meters tall, with a horse head or a rat head, was waving his arms vigorously to slap away something that looked like a tree branch extending towards him. Who is it? In front of him, a man wearing blue-black clothes and a wooden head, grabbed the base of his right shoulder with his left hand, controlling the branch tentacles extending from his body. Illegal use of quirks, robbery and injury. Today, I get out of my way, bastard. Don't block the way. The huge right hand swung and swept towards his body. Milan Shinwai dodged quickly, but although he dodged the attack, the terrifying force smashed the power tower next to him. Oops. Milan Shinwai, who subconsciously dodged, reacted when he saw the power tower being smashed away and the current on the broken wires surged. He stretched out his hands and a large number of tree branches quickly extended out to try to save it like her tree lock. The power tower flew straight towards the Qin people. Really? I can also encounter problems when passing by? Qin people were slightly speechless, but a mere power tower was still no problem. The phantom god is coming, the giant god soldier of obelisk. With a kick of his legs, a powerful force burst out, and a spider web-like tortoise crack burst out on the concrete ground, allowing him to jump more than 10 meters from the ground. At the same time, the magic power surged, and the quicksand rolled at high speed and condensed around him. A strong and hard body, ferocious edges and corners, and a sturdy body like a pillar of heaven condensed in the air. On the side of the body, two giant arms that were thicker than the body condensed and grabbed the flying power tower. After grabbing the power tower, the legs of the sand giant god soldier condensed, the soles of the feet intersected with the ground. The sand giant god soldier, which was 30 meters tall, maintained a half-squatting posture when condensing. At the same time, a voice rang out, "Deep Valley Cannon." A female giant wearing a purple and white tights suddenly appeared, and kicked the giant monster with a night kick, kicking him out and falling to the ground, and she landed steadily. The spectacular scene of the three giants appearing at the same time made everyone, including a group of professional heroes, stunned. The same was true for the three professional heroes at Qin Ren's feet, who immediately took action to try to rescue when they saw the power tower flying out. At this time, the first to react were a group of media reporters. They immediately took up their cameras and started to act. Snap, 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 shutters clicked and lights flashed. Momentum, it's rising. The speed of mana recovery instantly increased, which made Qin Ren feel refreshed. However, looking around, it was still not very convenient to use the sand giant soldier in the city. It was a bit crowded. After putting down the power tower, Qin Ren released the sand giant soldier and let the sand return to its original position. The other person, the female giant in tights, shrank rapidly, and then looked at him speechlessly. Compared with the ferocious and fierce appearance of the sand giant soldier, her tights emphasized the attractive appearance of bumps and curves, but also lost the upper hand. But, as a woman, as a beautiful woman, as a beautiful heroine, as a beautiful heroine with a good figure and wearing tights. Almost 80% of the media reporters immediately gathered around her. Mountain Lady, excuse me Mountain Lady, you Qin Ren, who had released the Sand Giant Warrior, fell to the ground and exchanged a look with several professional heroes beside him, feeling quite helpless. Then he walked to the side of the weirdo who had regained his original form after being kicked to the ground and lost consciousness. The professional hero who looked like a wooden sculpture was tying up the man together with the police who were jogging over. Junglin Shinwai. Qin Ren greeted him. He had been here for a few days, and some professional heroes had met him. Snatch, Jungle Shinwai said subconsciously, and then seemed to remember something, and said apologetically, "No, Izil, sorry." He apologized for his negligence that caused the weirdo to smash the power tower at Qin Ren, and also apologized for forgetting that Qin Ren had changed his hero name. "It's okay." Qin Ren shrugged his shoulders and said with a bit of evil interest, "Compared to this, the reward for defeating the villain this time is your partners again." The man in front of him was Jungle God of the Forest, ranked number 7 in the hero ranking, with the personality of trees. And the woman in tights was Mountain Lady, ranked number 23 in the hero ranking, with the personality of giant. The two were partners. The former was considered a newcomer, but the latter was a newer newcomer, and they were also in a relationship of senior and junior. Because there was a reward for defeating criminals, and professional heroes were everywhere, head grabbing often occurred, and Mountain Lady never let go of her partner's head. This is the 6th time this month. Hearing Qin Ren's words, Jungle God of the Forest looked melancholy. "I hope I won't starve to death." "I'm not going to starve to death, am I?" Qin Ren raised his eyebrows, although he knew that Mountain Lady liked to steal heads. Starving to death was too exaggerated. "You don't understand." Mi Lin Shenwei looked into the distance with a look of despair on his face. "It was 4 times last month, and 5 times last month. It's okay to rob once more every month." The keen man shook his head. It was amazing that Mi Lin Shenwei, such a wooden face, could show such a look of despair on his face. Turning his head, Qin Ren glanced at the Mountain Lady who was being interviewed by the media like an idol, and the remaining media reporters who wanted to interview him and Mi Lin Shenwei but were stopped by the heroes who were maintaining order at the scene. He shook his head and asked Mi Lin Shenwei, "Mi Lin Shenwei, where is Zhang Ying?" "Zhang Ying? You don't remember? You also graduated from Zhang Ying." "Oh, sorry." Mi Lin Shenwei was surprised for a moment, said subconsciously, and then apologized. "Sorry, I forgot about you." After saying sorry twice, he stretched out his hand and pointed his arm to the north. "Zhang Ying is there, but what are you doing in Zhang Ying?" "Thank you." Qin Ren thanked him, and when he turned around and was about to leave, he heard the second half of the other party's words. He paused and blinked. "I'm going to recuperate." "Recuperate?" Mi Lin Shenwei scratched his head with a puzzled look on his face, looking at Qin Ren who was moving away. "Are you going to find the recovery girl?" The only person in Zhang Ying who could be associated with recuperation was the healing hero recovery girl. The professional heroes didn't notice that in the crowd, a green-haired boy was taking notes with a puzzled look on his face. Chapter 157. I've been waiting for you to ask this question for a long time. At the entrance of UA High School, I'm Shota Aizawa. Snatch. "No, Izil, you," touching the restraint bandages tangled in his messy long hair. Shota Aizawa looked at the blond man in front of him who was looking around curiously, and sighed. "Nice to meet you." "Hello." "Hello, Eraserhead." "Hello, Roaring Sky Dog." Qin Ren stretched out his hand and shook hands with the other party. To be honest, the image of the other party is indeed very similar to the Roaring Sky Dog in the Lotus Lantern. By the way, which version of the Lotus Lantern was it? Qin Ren only remembered that the TV series started to be broadcast on TV when he was in junior high and high school. It was very popular at the time, but he didn't remember the exact time. The person in front of him has the personality of Erase and the hero name is Eraserhead. As the name suggests, he can eliminate other people's personalities by looking at them. Of course, it is not a permanent elimination, but only temporary. To use a more vivid metaphor, a person with the quirk of releasing fire is like a pencil. The fire he releases is the handwriting of the pencil, and Shota Aizawa can erase the handwriting like an eraser. This metaphor is not quite right. He cannot eliminate the fire created by others. He can only make the other party unable to release fire. Shota Aizawa, who is extremely sensitive to gazes and expressions, also noticed Qin Ren's curious eyes. The doubt in his heart, did Snatch really lose his memory? Gradually faded. The other party's eyes were like a stranger whose reputation he had heard of but had never actually met. Shaking his head in his heart, Shota Aizawa handed over a card. There are many surveillance cameras in the school, including the UE barrier, which is the gate. The alarm will sound the first time someone who does not belong to UE enters UE, then all channels will be closed. Your identity information has been logged in the UE alarm system. This is your ID card. Oh, the quicksand surged, and Shazi took the card and brought it to Qin Ren's hand. ID card? Shota Aizawa watched his movements. Your personality has changed. It seems so. Qin Ren did not change his expression after hearing this. Before, only part of my body could turn into sand, but after this incident, it's like some kind of limiter was turned on. Not only can my body turn into sand, but the sand around me can also be controlled. Did the limit turn on? Shota Aizawa repeated this sentence, staring at Qin Ren closely, his eyes flashing red. When he made this move, Qin Ren also felt that something in his body was restricted. Following the trend, Qin Ren took the initiative to stop controlling the sand, and the sand floating in his palm fell to the ground. Eraserhead, what are you doing? Qin Ren raised his head and turned his gaze from the cars to Shota Aizawa, just in case. Shota Aizawa's face remained unchanged, and his eyes swept over the gravel that fell on the ground. Although there are many cases of personality changes, they are basically concentrated before adulthood, but there are not many cases of personality changes after adulthood. Personality change, it can only be said that the original restrictions have been lifted. It is very uncomfortable to control the sand outside the body, and sometimes it will accidentally mix with the sand in your body, and you will get hurt when you restore it to its original state. You are really cautious. Qin Ren smacked his lips. Fortunately, he had thought about how to answer when someone asked him about his personality change, and the answer was, breaking through the limiter. Breaking through the gene lock. Well, it means that the personality of this body can control the surrounding sand, but it will cause damage to itself, so somewhere in the brain has added a lock to this ability, and after his head had problems, this lock disappeared, and he can use his personality at will. Of course, this is just a reason he made up for himself to be able to control sand. Snatch's personality can't do this at all. However, since he came to this world for several days, no one has asked. He felt that this reason was prepared in vain. But Aizawa, you are such a good person. Is that so? Hearing Qin Ren's reason, Aizawa Shota nodded, although he was still a little confused. This reason was also acceptable. More importantly, the genetic comparison was fine. The person in front of him was Higawara Shachin. Then, Aizawa Shota wanted to say something, but then, a high-decibel voice like a subwoofer suddenly sounded behind him. Aizawa. This sudden voice made Aizawa Shota couldn't help but stretch out his hands to cover his ears. Qin Ren, who was opposite him, didn't feel anything about this sound at all. He often wears in-ear headphones and has already developed resistance to various high-decibel sounds. Turning his eyes to the other side, a man with a yellow mop head and triangular glasses and a black jacket was walking towards the gate from the school. Mike. Aizawa Shota turned his head slowly and looked at the person coming. Hero name Briss and Mike personality super noise. The thing hanging around his neck, which can make extremely loud noises at will, looks like the corrective fixation plaster used by patients with cervical dislocation in the hospital. It is a directional loudspeaker. He seems to be the English teacher of a. It seems that there is an anecdote that when he was born, the sound of his crying broke the eardrums of his parents, doctors and nurses. Qin Ren recalled the other party's identity. When he saw Qin Ren, he paused, raised his arm high, and then shouted at a volume that was loud enough to be sued in court. Snacky, long, no, see, long, no, see. Qin Ren answered subconsciously, and then wondered for a moment, are Snatch and Mike old acquaintances? His hesitation was also caught by Aizawa Shota, who had not completely finished his observation, and once again confirmed that Snacky's memory is problematic. When Mike came to the two of them, Qin Ren said, "My name is Izir now." "Huh? When did you change your hero name?" Mike asked with a twisted mouth, slightly puzzled. "I submitted it 2 days ago, and today I officially got the approval for the hero name change." Qin Ren replied, "Is that so?" Mike nodded. Izir, what a great name." After answering with a questionable perfunctory expression, Mike asked Shota Aizawa, "Has All Might arrived?" "Not yet." Listening to the conversation between the two, Qin Ren remembered that the sudden crime he encountered this morning had an inexplicable familiarity. "So that's it. Today is All Might's first day as a teacher in US Heroes. Thanks to book friend 20170214160340213 for the reward of 100 starting coins, and thanks to Dirty Deeds Done Dirt Cheap for the reward of 1108 starting coins. Chapter 158. Isn't it that my English characteristics are simple, rough and easy to understand? The reservation time is 9:30, right? Mike touched his head with a puzzled look. "I still have classes at 10 o'clock. Maybe he encountered another case." Aizawa Shota answered immediately without thinking. With All Might's personality, no matter whether it is a big case or a small case, he will take action immediately. "That's true. After all, he is the #1 hero and the symbol of peace." Mike shrugged his shoulders. "You don't have classes next, right?" "I'm leaving first." After saying that, he greeted Qin Ren on the side. "Izir, I'm leaving first." "One." Qin Ren subconsciously waved his hand in response. "One?" Aizawa Shota next to him was puzzled by the content of his response. His question made Qin Ren also confused. He thought for a moment and then answered, "One means yes, understand, agree and so on." Just understand it as nodding. Is it related to the input method, or is it because it is a homophone of yes, or is it because there are usually only two options, and the first option is usually yes? One means to agree, understand, etc. He didn't know where it came from. Anyway, when playing LOL, he often used it to quickly express I know and agree. However, compared to accompanying Aizawa's yatai here, he would rather go shopping. Maybe he can also collect a batch of gold coins. By the way, in this world, he can be very leisurely, and there is no need to constantly collect gold coins like in the Magic Index and P5 world. In the few days since he came to this world, he has knocked out less than 4 people in total. Bounty, 6,749 yellow sand gold coins. When he left the P5 world, it was 2,869 gold coins plus a lot of bags. After opening them, it was more than 6,600. In other words, he only got about 80 gold coins in several days here, compared with the nearly 20,000 gold coins in the P5 world in less than a week. It is completely not on the same level. Thinking, Qin Ren turned around and went back in the direction he came from. Aizawa, I'm going to go to the city first to see if I can meet All Might. Are you also a fan of All Might? Aizawa Shota had a blank expression. Many faculty members and teachers in New Ainlai were fans of All Might. When they heard that All Might was coming to teach, they were very excited. Many people rushed to welcome All Might. In the end, the principal appointed him to come and wait. I just want to take a look. Qin Ren paused. I'll come over later. I'm probably also an All Might fan, right? And Aizawa Shota was about to say something, but he saw Qin Ren kick his right leg and jump into the air. The dust on his body condensed and turned into a pair of huge wings on his back, like a combination of bird wings and membrane wings. Dragon wings, bird wings, long jiu, hawks. Aizawa Shota blinked his dry eyes, and the figures of 2 people flashed through his mind. The former is a top 10 female hero, and the latter is a very active young hero recently. At this rate, she might be able to make it to the top 10. Gliding? Aizawa Shota took out eye drops from his pocket and dripped 2 drops into his eyes. In terms of the changes in ability, it can be used as a case in the teaching of personality application, and Simondos won't have to work so hard. Looking at Qin Ren gliding away like a bird, his dry eyes with bloodshot eyes did not fluctuate at all. Heroes of UA high school don't teach for free, even if they are recuperating. They have to do something. It's tiring to be disguised everywhere. Qin Ren, who was gliding, felt helpless. Although the person he possessed had the ability to partially turn into sand, he couldn't make the sand float out of thin air like Qin Ren did, and condensing wings was Qin Ren's external explanation for being able to fly. In fact, even if the pair of large wings that Qin Ren condensed now had a wingspan of 8 meters, it would not be able to support his weight in such a weak wind environment. He had to flap up and down, and gliding was impossible, unless he took advantage of the wind. Qin Ren could not only control the sand, but now he could also control the wind. He had a good idea of how strong the wind would be to make him float. It was called gliding, but it was actually floating. After a few kilometers, Qin Ren heard a familiar voice, Izir. Hey! Qin Ren turned his head and saw a man and a woman on the roof of a 10-story building 200 meters to the left. The mighty forest and the mountain lady. He changed direction and flew towards the two. Seeing Qin Ren flying, the two took 2 steps back at the same time to make room for him to land. Qin Ren landed and retracted the extended sand into his body. The sand was extended from his body by the partial sandification of the personality of this body. I didn't expect your sand could do this. The mountain heroine walked up to Qin Ren and touched his back. You can grow as big as me and fly at the same time. What a convenient ability. As she spoke, she folded her arms and held up her plump breasts. I'm so envious. Wild flowers are more fragrant than domestic flowers. Qin Ren glanced at her. I trained for a long time to do this, and without the previous incident as an opportunity, I wouldn't be able to do what I'm doing now. In fact, it wasn't long. When talking to other people, when talking about the topic of personality, Qin Ren would try his best to consciously or unconsciously attribute everything he could do now to the previous incident. The life and death crisis. Sometimes, lies become the truth when they are told too many times. Yushan, it's over. The forest god stopped the mountain heroine and looked at her with a speechless look. The incident half an hour ago made Yushan think that the other party had stolen her limelight. Obviously, he always steals my limelight. Feeling angry for a moment, Myron Camus looked at Izir and asked, didn't you go to U8 to find the recovery girl? Is it over, Yushan? Qin Ren was still struggling with who Yushan was, and then suddenly remembered something. That is, in the Hero Academy, the real names of the heroes are all related to their quirks. They are not later names like hero names, but real names. For example, Aizawa Shota, whose quirk is erasure, has erasure in his name. Hinagawa Shachin, whose quirk is partial desertification, has sand in his name. Hong Enji, whose quirk is hell flame, has flame in his name, and so on. And Yushan, mountain lady, is simple and easy to understand. Myron Camus' real name must also contain some keywords such as tree or wood. Izir, what are you thinking about? Because Qin Ren didn't answer, as if he was stunned, Myron Camus couldn't help shaking his arms. I was wondering who Yushan is. Qin Ren smiled. I've heard too many hero names and forgot my real name. Chapter 159 Broken Throat. Broken Throat. Speaking of which, UA will start the enrollment examination next month. As the three of them were talking about UA, Myron Camus seemed to remember something and said, it's a pity that the enrollment examination is not open to the public. We can only wait until the sports festival to watch it. Myron Camus looked a little regretful. Wait, next month? Qin Ren was slightly stunned. The enrollment examination started a month after All Might started teaching? The time doesn't seem right. Right? But he couldn't remember the time in the original book. Compared to this, unlike the idol-like goddess in front of the camera, the bored and irritated mountain lady turned her eyes to the west. Something seems to have happened over there. Although it was blocked by the building, black smoke could still be seen rising. Is it a villain? Enemy? A serious expression appeared on the wooden mask of Myron Shinwai, which was not sure whether it was equipment or face. I'll go over and check the situation first. He swung his hands to both sides, and his arms quickly extended like branches, grabbing the edge of the roof. Like a monkey in the woods, he used his personality to quickly swing between buildings and move towards the target location. I want to go too. The mountain heroine turned her head and glanced at Qin Ren, then jumped up, her body quickly growing in the air, and a female giant more than 20 meters tall appeared in an instant. She saw the empty landing point, and her huge body also went away at a speed that did not belong to Myron Shinwai. The more I look at it, the more it looks like Ultraman. Qin Ren looked at the back of the mountain heroine and couldn't help touching his chin. How many female Ultramen are there? Then, he clenched his right hand, and the Millennium Key materialized the quicksand in the yellow sand space, attached it to his body, and formed a pair of huge flying dragon wings. Forget it. I might as well just turn into a desert dragon. The quicksand surged, and a desert dragon with an 8-meter wingspan emerged. It had thick hind legs, huge winged arms like a bat or a pterosaur, and a tail with countless spikes swaying gently behind it. It doesn't feel good without arms. Qin Ren looked at his winged arms and thought for a moment. The next second, a pair of thick forelimbs stretched out from the ribs of the desert dragon. Thinking about the form of the cloud dragon, Qin Ren made adjustments to his form. It feels better this way. With a flap of his wings, a storm rolled up, and Qin Ren's body flew into the air, quickly sweeping towards the place where the black smoke was rising. On the other side, in the bridge tunnel under the light rail tram track, a tall, thin, blonde middle-aged man who looked like a skeleton had a very helpless expression. I was seriously injured before, and I can only keep that muscle shape and move for a limited time. The two thick golden bangs on his head drooped along his thin cheeks. Because he was too thin, the shadows formed by the deep eyes made the whites of his eyes look completely black. He gathered his loose white t-shirt and looked at the green-haired boy in front of him with a dull face. He couldn't help but sighed. Now you should understand, right? I am really All Might. But the green-haired boy with freckles on his face had an expression of disbelief. All Might should be strong, always smiling, and a symbol of peace. Although he listened to the other party's explanation, he still found it difficult to connect the zombie-like man in front of him with his idol All Might, who was more muscular than Mr. Bodybuilder. Just now, he saw his idol All Might from a distance and followed him from a distance, but it was precisely because of this that he saw the change of All Might's body from a muscular man to this thin body like a skeleton, so he screamed and was discovered by the other party. At first, he thought it was someone with a transformation quirk pretending to be All Might. But, boy, the skinny All Might wanted to say something, but at this moment, his sight swept to the west and saw the huge body of the mountain lady moving. What happened? His expression tightened, and a wisp of white smoke like steam came out of his body. His body suddenly swelled up, and he instantly transformed from a skinny rib spirit into a giant with arms thicker than a normal person's head. The tight muscles in his legs were tense, and he kicked out like a spring, like a missile launcher, and his body burst out with terrifying power. The whole person flew out like a missile, flying towards the place where the black smoke came out. However, All Might, who was in the air, was suddenly stunned and looked at his left leg. The green-haired boy hugged his thigh without knowing when. Hey, boy, you're too enthusiastic. Not only are you following me, but you're also forcing your way here. Let go. I still have to deal with the situation. All Might's hand pressed down on the green-haired boy's head, trying to get the leech-like boy off his thigh. Let go now from such a high altitude. You'll die. You'll really die. All Might was stunned, and it seemed to be true. I really can't do anything with you. Hold on tight. Turning his eyes to the front, All Might adjusted his body movements in the air, adjusting the landing point from the side of the black smoke to a place a little further away. He couldn't bring the boy directly to the scene. However, when he was about to land, he suddenly found that a sandy yellow reptile with ferocious corners and huge wings passed by the side of the building. Long Jiayu. In his impression, this posture was only possessed by the Dragon Rider hero number 9 in the hero rankings, Long Jiayu, the sexy, strong, and responsible female hero. The god of the jungle, the mountain lady. If Long Jiayu had come, he wouldn't have to deal with the situation, and she and the other heroes should have been able to handle it. But it seemed that something was not right. Although his sight only passed by for a moment, All Might also noticed that something was not right. With a loud bang, All Might's strong body landed steadily on the ground, and then he grabbed the back of the green-haired boy's collar and put him down. The loud noise was also noticed by the ordinary citizens around and the professional heroes who gathered around. All Might. That's All Might. All Might is here. If All Might comes, this villain will definitely be solved. Great. this villain's personality, the other heroes are helpless. All Might's sight swept across the crowd and looked at the scene. The flames burned the flammable and non-flammable materials, and turbid black smoke came out. "Let me go, damn bastard!" A boy with a faded light golden hedgehog head kept releasing explosions from his hands. A liquid creature with a color similar to seaweed was entwining his body, giving a hideous smile. "Resistance is useless, even if you scream your throat out. No one can save you. It only takes 1 minute, and we can merge into one thanks to the book Friend Fast 9 for the reward of 200 starting coins." Chapter 160 Control skills are really unsolvable. This villain's personality has no entity, and my ability can't do anything about it, Jungle God said to the other professional heroes around him, then tied up several wounded people with sand and jumped out of the flames. The personality gave him great power, but it also brought him weaknesses. He was not good at dealing with enemies whose personality was related to fire. In order to resist, the boy continuously released explosive shots from his hands, and the damage to the electrical appliances caused the flames. Looking across the distance, the mountain heroine was half kneeling in the distance. Yu Shan's ability is gigantic, but she can't adjust the size at will. She can only maintain her original form or a huge body of 20 meters high. In such a small place, in order to avoid destroying the surrounding houses, she can't walk in. Even if she walked in, she couldn't cause effective damage to the mud-like guy. At this moment, a storm swept in. Jungle God, who had just escaped from the flames and wanted to put down the wounded, stretched out branches from his arms to wrap around the wounded's body, and stretched out branches similar to roots from the bottom of his feet, firmly fixing himself to the ground. He barely raised his head and saw a western dragon with a ferocious appearance flapping its wings, rolling up a storm and blowing towards the alley. The violent whirlwind blew out most of the flames along the way, and even the flames that were not directly blown by the cover showed signs of extinguishing. However, the mud-like monster had already hidden behind the cover because of the battle with other heroes before Qin Ren arrived. The storm that Qin Ren deliberately restrained did not cause effective damage to him. Moreover, he laughed, "Hey, hero, your strength is not enough. Make the wind stronger." "What a pity. If there were no hostages, I would have sent a sandstorm over to let you have a taste of it." Flapping his wings, Qin Ren stopped controlling the storm to sweep the opponent. Now that he has the identity of a hero, it is better to avoid actions that will hurt the hostages as much as possible. In the original work, All Might directly punched out a storm to blow away the mud's body and rescued people. Qin Ren can do it too. But compared to controlling sand, he is not very familiar with controlling wind, and it is not that the power is too weak to save people, but if the wind is stronger, it is very likely to kill the hostages. This is not an exaggeration. A storm that can roll up a 10-ton object is very likely to kill the hostages. Myron Shenhua half opened his eyes and looked at the dragon fanning out a whirlwind, slightly surprised. Long Jiayu. Not only him, but all the professional heroes present and a large part of the onlookers thought of the dragon rider hero Long Jiayu. However, at this moment, looking at the many helpless heroes, a green-haired boy suddenly rushed out and rushed towards the mud monster, Xiaoshan. The boy tied up by the mud barely opened his eyes and shouted in an angry tone, "Don't come over." "Chu Jiayu, what are you doing?" Noticing this, Myron Shenhua's limbs extended again, turning into a branch as thick as an arm, and tied up the green-haired boy called Chu Jiayu and dragged him back. At this time, Qin Ren made a voice, "Hey, that hedgehog-headed brat, grit your teeth, close your eyes, and don't look over here no matter what." Qin Ren made a voice. The boy who was tied up by the enemy who was like seaweed-colored mud gritted his teeth and turned his head abruptly. "Hey, hero, don't act trashly, I will use him as a shield." The mud-like enemy would naturally not be unresponsive. Hearing Qin Ren's warning, his liquid-like body deliberately pushed the boy's head to the front of his body, blocking himself and Qin Ren. Using hostages as shields is naturally not a strange thing. The crowd and heroes also spoke up immediately. "Long Jiayu, don't act trashly, you might hurt the boy." "Wait, Long Jiayu, no, let's wait for other heroes." "No, Long Jiayu, you can't." "You can try, idiot," Qin Ren shouted at the silt, and then spoke again. "Also, my name is Izir, not Long Jiayu. The next moment, a hint of green flashed in the vertical pupils of the desert wind dragon that Qin Ren transformed into stone gaze. A faint green light was about to bloom from his eyes. The next moment, the liquid body of the silt monster that looked directly at Qin Ren quickly hardened and turned into stone. The ferocious expression instantly solidified and turned into a large figurine. Skill, Stone Gaze, G, causes G magic damage to all enemies in front of it. Enemies facing the user will be stunned for 2 seconds due to petrification, and enemies with their backs to the user will be slowed by 40%. Snake Girl's ultimate move can petrify enemies for 2 seconds. Unfortunately, no, fortunately, the petrifying gaze of G cannot permanently petrify creatures. Qin Ren thought to himself, and his body suddenly fell down. The wind dragon's body disintegrated into countless quicksands, turning into a giant hand, rushing towards the mud monster, grabbing his body, and preparing to crush the part of the mud monster that trapped the hostage. However, at this moment, he was shocked to find that he could directly control the petrified part. Qin Ren suddenly felt that the petrified part of the mud monster was under his control. Not only him, but also several professional heroes who turned their heads to look at him were also petrified and under his control. Without hesitation, he immediately controlled the petrified part of the mud monster to shatter, allowing the hostage boy to escape from the mud. 2 seconds, almost the moment the boy called Zhao Shen was pulled out, the mud monster and several other petrified heroes returned to their original state. The moment the mud monster recovered, it noticed the boy who had separated from its body. Although it didn't understand what was going on, it reacted immediately and stretched its body again to grab the boy and try to occupy this body again. However, at this moment, he heard a voice, "Stupid thing, if you don't want to die, be honest." Subconsciously, when his body was tied to the boy, his eyes turned to Qin Ren. At this moment, the hot sand wrapped countless dried corpses and rolled in the endless desert. A pair of huge vertical pupils, a pair of eyes with unknown identities, suddenly emerged in the sky, looming in the dazzling sunlight, like a god looking down on the living, exuding a trembling breath. "Where is this? Where is this?" he kept asking himself in his heart. Trance and panic intertwined. Fear, involuntarily generated from the bottom of his heart. And this, in the sky, the eyes covered by the dazzling sunlight became clearer and more real. "I am so insignificant." Without any resistance, he cried out, fell to the ground, and crawled backwards using his hands and feet. "No, no, let me go, I don't want to die." However, this scene was only in his eyes. To the outsiders, after Qin Ren said that, the mud monster fell into a stagnation, and then began to turn around and retreat in a panic. Looking at the mud retreating in panic, Qin Ren couldn't help but curl his lips. Fear, G, fear a target, causing the target to move away from the user at a damaged speed. Scarecrow's fear skill is very unsolvable in reality. No, it should be said that control skills are all unsolvable. The petrification skill is also very invincible. Chapter 161, Changing Positions. The mud, which had retreated due to the sudden fear, recovered quickly. However, the next moment, his body was firmly grasped by an arm. He looked up and saw a tall blonde man. Seeing this scene, another hero who had fought against the mud monster, Death Punch, and the light blonde boy who escaped from the mud monster's body shouted at the same time, "Be careful! His body can't be grasped. Idiot, he can entangle you. Ha ha ha. Stupid hero, your personality, I accept it." The mud monster's body twisted rapidly, like a stretched chewing gum, and was about to entangle Qin Ren's arm. The hearts of the professional heroes and onlookers who had originally let go were lifted. However, Qin Ren just looked weird. "I say, you won't forget what my quirk is, right?" Hearing this, not only the sludge monster was stunned, but other professional heroes and onlookers were also guided by his words. "Isn't he the sand hero Snatch? What is his quirk? It seems to turn his body into sand." "His current hero name is Izir." Milan Shenhui said, "His quirk is sand." After what happened this morning, he and Yushan went to check it out. Not only did he change his hero name, but his quirk registration also changed from sand to sand. The brief description was also changed from able to turn part of the body into sand to able to turn objects into sand and control them. including his own body. The situation that temporarily petrified the sludge and professional heroes just now was also unprecedented. At this time, everyone also heard Qin Ren's voice. My quirk can control sand and turn my body into sand. Do you think I can turn others into sand? Turn others into sand too? Is this the ability just now? By the way, the closer you are to me, the easier it is for me to turn you into sand. Qin Ren expressionlessly related all his skills to sandification. Qin Ren's serious words, which seemed to show off his strength, answered everyone's doubts and shocked the mud monster. Wait a minute, his panicked words stopped abruptly after he uttered part of them. Qin Ren's eyes radiated a faint green light. The original algae green liquid body hardened at a very fast speed and turned into a hard object like a stone. Maybe others are helpless against this thing, but it is quite simple for Qin Ren. He has 5 or 6 ways to deal with this thing. The first one is to imitate All Might's method in the original work and use strong winds, but because he was worried about hurting people, he didn't use his full strength. The second one is the petrification gaze skill he is using now. The third one is the fear skill just now. The fourth type, Qin Ren's eyes swept across the skill bar. Skill, Desert Prison. G. Continuously consume mana to extract moisture from objects touched by the right hand. There are also the passive scorching punishment of blood, the attack of the sun disk, and so on. There are too many methods. Then, he swung his arm and threw the sludge monster away. The quicksand condensed and formed a sphere, wrapping the sludge body. Normal density won't work. The liquid body can be penetrated with the density of ordinary sand. Then, a high density like glass will do. Fine dust surged and filled the gaps in the spherical cage. When the filling was completed, the sludge also recovered from the petrified state. What is this? Damn it, let me out. In the spherical cage, the sludge monster slapped the cage crazily with its fluid body, and kept yelling. Qin Ren ignored him completely and turned his eyes to the other side. Who of you has a stronger and more sealed container to lock up this villain? Its personality is too easy to escape. Me, I have a thermos cup here. I have a bucket for the water dispenser at home. Here. Before the professional heroes could speak, the crowd of onlookers shouted excitedly. In this heroic society, most people are quite willing to help. Seeing this situation, All Might, who was ready to take action at any time, breathed a sigh of relief. It's a close call. There is not much time left for today's activities. He smiled and shook his head, turned around and ran away quietly. Before leaving, he glanced at the green-haired boy. Qin Ren also noticed this situation due to the perception brought by the powerful attributes, but at this time, the media reporters who surrounded him made him raise his eyebrows. You are the Sand Hero Snatch. Regarding the personality of this villain, we want to also, Mr. Snatch, sorry, my current hero name is Izir, and I have other urgent matters to deal with. The interview will wait until next time. Although the media's presence brought a lot of momentum, dealing with the media was really a hassle. After transferring the silt from his sand prison, he found an excuse and slipped away. On the side, watching this scene, the green-haired boy who was stopped by the jungle god and called Stinky also breathed a sigh of relief. Great, Xiaoxing, the problem is solved. He looked at the boy next to him and said, shut up, just a no personality. The hot-tempered light blonde boy did not smile at all, but showed an angry expression, and cursed at the one who rushed out to save him. After saying that, he turned around and left without looking back. Xiaoxing, the green-haired boy looked at the other party in astonishment and sighed. Afterwards, he seemed to remember something and looked towards All Might's original position, but the tall and thin figure that looked like a skeleton had disappeared. No, I have to go ask. Although he had already accepted the fact that he had no quirk and could not become a hero, he had to confirm it in person, get the answer from his idol, the number one hero, All Might. He needed an answer, even if the answer would disappoint him, even if it was just comforting words, it didn't matter. Wiping the black ash on his face, the green-haired boy stood up and rushed out of the crowd. Hey, you two, you still have to take notes. Myrene Kami, who was talking to the mountain lady who had returned to her original form, couldn't help but look confused after discovering that the two boys had left the scene. One for all. Qin Ren, who was hiding aside and observing Midoriya Izuku, the green-haired boy, muttered the most famous quirk in the series Hero Academy. Not only because he is All Might's quirk, but also because this quirk is quite special. Chapter 162 One for All. One for All, in My Hero Academia, is a quiz that is the main storyline. It is a derivative of another quiz All for One that is also the main storyline. One for All was originally a mixture of two quirks, a mixture of giving quirks to others and being able to store power. The person who gets One for All can store all of the physical strength he has gained through various exercises throughout his life in this quirk, and then it can be given to the next person. It is a quirk that is passed down like a holy flame. If you are a PM player, you will be very familiar with the baton tactics. So far, All Might is the 8th generation to hold One for All. When he holds One for All, he has the power of 8 people. After generations of inheritance and cultivation, the physical abilities of each generation of inheritors are constantly superimposed, and the top quirks become stronger with the inheritance. If it was just the original One for All, then it would only be a pure physical enhancement type that can store the power of 8 people. The powerful power allows the owner to blast out huge shockwaves and move at high speeds with just a strong body. But each generation of people who hold One for All does not have no quirks. That's right, One for All, its own characteristic is a transferable personality that can give personality to others. However, the holder of the personality will also pass on the personality he has, according to the clear description in the original work. In addition to storing power and transmitting personality, One for All has integrated 6 personalities. Others only have one ability, but those who have One for All can awaken 8 personalities one after another. Now the holder of One for All is the number 1 hero, the symbol of peace, the most popular and responsible hero All Might. And the green-haired boy, the boy named Midoriya Izuku, is All Might's disciple in the original work, the next inheritor of One for All, and the protagonist of the work. Well, to put it simply, it is a bug-level personality, and to put it more vulgarly, it is also okay to say that it is a divine weapon. But Qin Ren really has no interest in it. If Qin Ren had not traveled through time, as an ordinary person, he would definitely envy and want it. But now, what he has is far better than this One for All. So now, although it sounds arrogant, he really doesn't care. However, he wants to watch the show, and when he comes to this not-so-dangerous world, he must watch all the major events. At this moment, a voice sounded in his ear, "Dad, I want to go out and play." The skinny All Might looked around and confirmed that there were few pedestrians, then answered the phone. "Hello, Aizawa, huh? I'll be there soon." "An hour? Ha ha ha, because I encountered an incident, and the incident has been resolved." Okay, I'll be there right away." Putting the phone back into the left pocket of his work pants, All Might sighed. I still can't get along with Aizawa. A trace of embarrassment emerged on his face, which was as thin as a skeleton. "It's better to report quickly." As he said, he took out a map from the other side of his pocket. "I haven't been back to UI for a long time, and I can't even remember the way." But at this moment, All Might suddenly heard someone calling him All Might. All Might turned his head with a little panic, and found a green-haired boy who was panting and holding the wall and stopped not far away, as if he had just chased after him. "It's you, boy." All Might breathed a sigh of relief. Not many people knew about his skinny appearance. Only the heroes who were close to him knew about it. If he was exposed to the public, he, as a symbol of peace, would become like this, which would also affect people's hearts. This was not an exaggeration. His status was like this. His words and deeds would have an impact on the entire hero society. He asked some media who knew about it not to leak this matter. At least, it should not be leaked before he found the successor of One for All. "My name is Izuku Midoriya." The boy introduced himself with a slight stutter because of excitement. "Well, Midoriya boy, what can I do for you?" All Might thought for a while. "Don't reveal my appearance." "I understand." Izuku Midoriya nodded seriously. Then he lowered his head, hesitating whether to say it. "Ask whatever you want, as long as it's not too confidential. I will tell you." All Might treated Izuku Midoriya as an ordinary fanatical fan. "I want to ask." Izuku Midoriya mustered up his courage, raised his head, and looked at the hero in front of him. whom he had admired for more than 10 years. Can a person without a quirk become a hero? In this world where 80% of people have quirks, he, Izir Qin, is a person without quirks. His mother has a quirk that attracts objects, and his father has a quirk that breathes fire, but he did not inherit even one of his parents' quirks. Every child, from birth to the age of 4, will basically awaken a quirk, and basically inherit the quirks of their parents to a greater or lesser extent. But he does not have a quirk that can attract objects, nor can he breathe fire, nor does he have the characteristics of attracting, absorbing, and controlling fire that are fused with his parents' quirks. He once fantasized about what kind of quirk he would awaken if he inherited his parents' quirks, but the fact is that he, Izir Qin, has no quirk. No. If having one more joint than a normal person on his left little toe can be considered a quirk, then he does have a quirk. A useless quirk that is no different from having no quirk, even if it's just comfort, even if it's just a lie. Just say yes, just say you can definitely become a hero. Izir Qin clenched his fists and shouted in his heart. He was smart and had already understood the reality, but he was unwilling to give up hope, unwilling to give up hope that was almost equal to zero. Even if it was just false. Hearing Izir Qin's question and looking at the other party's trembling hands, All Might was stunned. No quirk, he muttered to himself. He, All Might, was also no quirk before becoming a hero and getting one for all from his master. At that time, he firmly told his ideal to the 7th generation one for all holder, Nanishimura, who was not his master at the time, to become a symbol of peace, to lead peace, and to make this chaotic hero society peaceful. At that time, he didn't know that one for all could be passed on, but he began to work hard with such a lofty ideal. Perhaps these words touched his master Nanishimura, and he became the 8th generation one for all holder. Looking at the boy in front of him, recalling the back of the boy who rushed out recklessly before, All Might was silent for a while. Maybe he should tell him the reality. Tell him that people without quirks are very powerless in the heroic society. Tell him the reality. Let him give up the delusion that people without quirks can also become heroes. Let him be a policeman, or other mediocre social gears. Although small, he can realize his own value silently. A quirkless person like himself who can obtain one for all is. Wait a minute. All Might looked at his palm and pondered for a long time. I'm sorry, All Might. After apologizing to his former assistant and the other successor whom he had carefully selected and whom he had high expectations for, All Might lowered his head and looked at Izir Qin, who was staring at him and nervously waiting for his answer, and said, Midraya, you will definitely become a hero. As if he had been redeemed, tears flowed from Izir Qin's eyes and he said incoherently, Thank you, thank you, thank you, All Might, thank you, Midraya. I want to tell you something. Looking at Izir Qin, who was in tears and kept wiping his tears with his sleeves to make himself look stronger, All Might said, About my personality, if you can pass my trial, then you may be able to inherit the qualification of one for all. Thanks to the book friend Dimension for the 200 starting coins reward. If you're listening to this novel on a channel other than Fanfic World, it means they downloaded and uploaded it without effort. We cordially invite you to visit our channel, Mundo Fanfic Novelist. There you'll find the original version of this story and you can explore many other novels of various genres. We're waiting for you to immerse yourself in a world of incredible novels. Chapter 163, Mutated 9 Pillars. At the same time, Qin Ren looked at the girl in front of him with mixed feelings. Long orange hair, desert-style clothing, and a snake crown on her head. There is no doubt that this appearance is Sakura Futaba. And who is she? Needless to say, you know. 32. Here, Dad. His cheap daughter, the woman with a seductive appearance, with a bull head and a sheep head on both sides and a snake tail, and her appearance is very similar to Queen Asmodeus in the 72 Pillars of Demons. Wait a minute, it stands to reason that 32 was born from the Holy Grail of Harmony. He is her father and her mother is the Grail. If someone asks about her parents, what will Qin Ren say? I fucked the Holy Grail, and then the Grail gave birth to a girl. Qin Ren sighed in his heart and looked at the girl in front of him. The reason why the other party can become Sakura Futaba is because of vanity. That is, in the P5 world, he let the yellow sand space eat the vanity art museum of Madurai Mikriuzai. The 3 demon palaces that were destroyed and absorbed were all fused by the Holy Grail, and 32, who was born from the Holy Grail, also possessed the power of lust, vanity, and anger. It goes without saying what lust represents. She can easily seduce others. Vanity allows her to change her form, and she appears as Sakura Futaba because of vanity. Anger greatly increases her power. In mythology, one of the sayings about the demon god Asmodeus is that she is a queen with peerless beauty and powerful strength. After 32 was born, her body was only the size of a palm, and she blasted purgatory away with one punch. After swallowing the Sphinx, which represents anger in the Futaba demon palace, her power seems to have become stronger again. Don't call me like that outside being called dad. Dad, it's really a bit uncomfortable. Looking at the well-behaved girl in front of him who appeared in the form of Sakura Futaba, he wanted to say something, but before he could speak, the other party said first, "Your Majesty Izil, I need a real name, a name that belongs to me." The innocent look on her face disappeared, leaving only seriousness. The other party's sudden change of address and request made Qin Ren stunned. Then, he thought about it and was about to say the name Evelyn, but he suddenly remembered something. It seems that the devil has a real name to represent life, although I don't know if it is said in mythology or in various modern works such as D&D. The names of devils are quite long. Thinking, he raised his head. Knem Apep Wajid 32 Merit Sagar Hathor. Knem, the goat-headed god in ancient Egyptian mythology. Apep, the chaos serpent in ancient Egyptian mythology. The most common alias is Apophis. Wajet, the snake goddess and patron saint of Lower Egypt in ancient Egyptian mythology, is described as a woman with 2 snake heads, sometimes with a human head and a snake body. Merit Seeger, the cobra goddess in ancient Egyptian mythology, is artistically portrayed as a coiled cobra, or half human and half snake, and sometimes as a 3-headed cobra. Hathor, a goddess in ancient Egyptian mythology, is portrayed as a cow, a woman with a cow's head and a human body, or a peerless beauty with cow ears. This long list is a complete hodgepodge without any aesthetic sense. He had no inspiration at all, so he directly named it from the appearance of the other party's 3 heads of sheep, man and cow. The 3 snakes were also because of the posture of the 3-headed giant snake that 32 changed before. At the moment he said this name, endless quicksand surged in the yellow sand space and surged towards the Holy Grail of Harmony floating in the air. Then, endless yellow sand wrapped up the Holy Grail, forming a huge yellow sand Holy Grail. The Holy Grail of Harmony was embedded in the bottom of the Holy Grail of yellow sand. The liquid that flowed out of the Holy Grail was carried by the Holy Grail of yellow sand. Then, the Holy Grail of yellow sand was lifted from the ground by the yellow sand. A huge pillar was lifted from under the yellow sand and kept rising until it disappeared from sight. It was like a pillar connecting heaven and earth. On the pillar, a long list of names that the Qin people had just given her slowly emerged, and then slowly twisted, dissolved, and turned into her posture. It was a sand-yellow portrait that looked like a mural. Purgatory, who was sleeping soundly on the side, was awakened, flapped his huge wings and flew up, looking at the huge pillar in surprise. The Qin people also noticed this situation. Pillar, is this the 9 pillars? The Qin people, who had just given 32 the real name of the Egyptian god, had to associate this huge pillar with the 9 pillars. The 9 pillars in Egypt means the 9 most important gods, not the pillars. The only thing related to the pillar is obelisk, which is the obelisk. However, all the obelisks are used to worship the sun god, not the other 8 9-pillar gods. So what is going on? Moreover, he found on the relief of 32 on the huge pillar that she was holding an item, the Millennium Key. Unlike the one held by Qin Ren, this Millennium Key was completely condensed from yellow sand. Qin Ren looked at the inventory, where the Millennium Key and the unopened sealed sun disk were lying quietly. 32, should you explain it to me? Qin Ren looked at the other party and was ready to question him. However, he only saw confusion on 32's face. She didn't know what was going on at all. After a moment of silence, Qin Ren didn't say anything, but buried this doubt in his heart and kept silent. You know what to do in this world, right? I understand. 32 looked at her creator, her father, although she didn't have any memory or knowledge at the beginning. After absorbing countless cognitive light balls, swallowing the shadow of Sakura Futaba and the angry sphinx of the impression space, her brain was filled with knowledge and memory far beyond that of normal people. You know what you know? Qin Ren was a little confused. After he said this, he was about to say the next sentence, telling her you can go out and walk, but don't cause chaos. Just know. In order to maintain his momentum, he just nodded, but at this time, he was shocked to find something. Third Eye too can materialize in this world by herself. Because of what happened just now, he interrupted the action of injecting mana into the Millennium Key to maintain 32's materialization, but now she still exists, and he quickly thought of the reason: the yellow sand key soaked in the yellow sand Holy Grail. Replica? Clone? After observing for a while, Qin Ren has determined the current situation. After the changes in the yellow sand space just now, Third Eye 2 already has the power to materialize the Millennium Key, and the power consumed is the endless spring of mana in the Harmony Holy Grail. The spring of mana is slowly decreasing at a speed visible to the naked eye. At this rate, it is estimated that it will not last for an hour before she can no longer materialize. After discussing with 32 and letting her move within his attack range, 6,050 yards, he moved towards the UA Academy. All Might had just gone to the UA Academy. Chapter 164, Zanying Academy, UA. The principal's office. Finally here, Izir. Shota Aizawa said as he watched Qin Ren walk into the principal's office with the guidance of another person. Beside him was the skinny All Might. Inside the desk that should be the principal's seat, sat a white mouse in a suit with a scar on his right eye. Principal Nezu, I'll be leaving first, okay? Thank you for your hard work, Mr. Aizawa. The principal nodded. After listening to him with a weak attitude, Shota Aizawa walked out of the door slowly, as if he was sleepy after staying up all night to cultivate immortality for a long time. After watching Shota Aizawa walk past him, he also walked in and said to Nezu in the shape of a mouse, Principal Nezu, in this world with all kinds of weird personalities, it is not uncommon to look like a wild animal. However, this Principal Nezu is not a human, although he is a little bigger than the white mouse used for experiments. Just like his appearance, he, or it, was originally a white mouse used for experiments. And it is also the only animal with personality that has appeared in this world so far. The personality is super intelligent, and has a powerful brain power far beyond human intelligence. Long time no see, Snatch. All Might greeted him as if he knew someone. Hero ranking number 45. The Dust Hero Snatch often performs some tasks to protect important items. Many heroes, whether Endeavor or All Might, have had many contacts with him. Qin Ren also raised his hand. I'm sorry, my current hero name is Izir. When did you change your hero name? All Might was a little surprised, and then recalled that in the previous incident, the young hero, Miram Kami, seemed to have been mentioned. Principal Nezu, who was observing silently at the side, interrupted at the right time. Snatch was attacked by the hero killer, his head was damaged, and he lost almost all of his memories. Although I really want to inherit my former self, it is difficult for me to accept things that I have not experienced personally. Qin Ren lied seriously, and his expressionless face showed no emotion at all, so I changed my hero name. Really? All Might nodded slowly with a slightly shocked expression. Thank you for your hard work. From now on, Izir will stay in UA for a while until he is familiar with the current situation. Looking at All Might, Principal Nezu crossed the 8 fingers of both hands, and then looked at Qin Ren. All Might will teach in UA in the future. The two nodded at the same time. Then, Principal Nezu jumped down from the chair and walked between the two. Izir, tell me the details of your situation, including the personality, and I will arrange you according to your situation. Snatch has personality changed, and it also wanted to know the details of the situation. Yes. Qin Ren nodded. My quirk has changed. The quirk has changed? All Might frowned. The quirk disappeared. No, he had just seen the other party use his quirk, so he had added a quirk. Was it related to All for One? No. Qin Ren shook his head. The change I'm talking about is different from the quirk recorded in the records. Different from the records? Yes. Qin Ren nodded. The quirk registration says that the body can be partially turned into sand.
He raised his hand, and his right hand disintegrated into quicksand, floating in the air. But, in fact, his right hand recovered and clenched into a fist, and the gravel on the ground around him gathered up. In other words, your quirk can actually cause objects to turn into sand and control them? All Might touched his chin. Is there a discrepancy with the content recorded by the City Hall? There are actually many such cases. The most typical case before was a child with a water-spraying quirk, but when he grew up, he confirmed that his actual quirk was to condense the surrounding water and shoot it out. Because of these things, 1 or 2 changes in the level of quirks are still allowed. But see, Izir has been a professional hero for nearly 20 years. This kind of thing in short. Due to memory loss and the asymmetry between his quirk and his records, Izir needs to get familiar with his quirk again. Nezu said, but after all, it's a matter of age. He has graduated from UE, he can't be a student of UE. Moreover, although he is not familiar with quirks, he mastered them very quickly. All Might nodded. What he saw this morning was that he was very skilled in controlling his quirk. It was completely impossible to tell that he had only mastered it for a few days. Although his brain has lost his memory, the fit between his quirk and his body that he has trained for a long time allowed him to master it quickly. Subconscious instinct? Just like some people who have experienced a long time in battle, their bodies will react instinctively to the surrounding situation even if they don't notice it. All Might is very familiar with this. One for All contains the instincts that the previous 7 generations have trained for a long time, and it can even be called will. Okay, then, next, Izir, please go and assist Cementos. Next month is the entrance exam for UA. Principal Nezu, who was only a size or 2 bigger than an ordinary mouse, said, your personality and Cementos' personality are very advantageous in the construction site. Cementos? Oh, cement, see? He wants to be a cement worker as soon as he arrives here, although there is nothing wrong with his personality, but, well, forget it. It's better to be more leisurely. I understand. He nodded and turned around, about to leave. By the way, where is Cementos? But when he remembered this and was about to turn around to ask, Principal Nezu seemed to know what he was going to ask. Cementos is in the staff room. Awesome, Principal. Qin Ren was a little surprised. When he left, Principal Nezu also turned to talk to All Might. All Might, Yuan. No, Principal, I have to rush to train. What training? Do you need to train your body? Can you still train? It's okay. I just have other things to do. Qin Ren, who was walking away, listened to the increasingly quiet conversation behind him and blinked. It seems that the principal also knows One for All. The existence of One for All is a confidential matter. There are very few people who know it, only a handful of people, but the principal is one of them. P.S. I forgot to say one thing. If you go to watch the original work, especially to watch the animation on Bilibili, it is best to turn off the barrage. If you don't want to turn off the barrage, I provide a barrage blocking list here, just like, click, unlock, go to bed, get married, distressed, excessive, cute, hug, girl, jealous. It can be said that the 2 shows with the worst barrage quality on Bilibili are Shakugan no Shana and My Hero Academia. If you want to watch a hot-blooded battle show instead of a BL love show, these blocked words can be added to your blocking list. Close these blocking words after reading. Some of them can also effectively block the gay comments that flood the screen when watching other shows. Chapter 165. Who can bear this? Cementos, Cement Division. The personality Cement can freely deform the concrete it touches. Standing in front of Qin Ren is a strange humanoid creature with a head like a cement slab. However, there are too many alien creatures in this world, and Qin Ren has seen all kinds of monsters, so he didn't react much. Cement Division, where should we build next? With a wave of his arm, the quicksand rolled up and filled the site that was originally full of holes. Cement Division also took action immediately, bent down, and touched the ground with his arm. The concrete in the distance immediately surged and deformed, forming a flat ground, sealing the pit that Qin Ren had built. Actually, it's almost done. Cement Division touched his head with his broad hands. It's basically done. The main thing is the admissions exam venue next month. Because it's a holiday now, The original first year and second year students are not in school, and there are not many places in the school that need to be repaired. As a heroic society, among the many personalities, there are also many personalities with strong destructive power. When he is busy, he has to go to repair 4 or 5 venues a day. But now, there are not many, just some traces left by the second-year students who are training during the holiday. Fortunately, there is Izil's help. He turned his eyes to Izil, whose personality was similar to his, and could help a lot in repairing the site. After that, his work should be much lighter. And for Qin Ren, it was really boring. Unexpectedly, this leisurely life that he thought would be quite good, he couldn't say that he liked or disliked this kind of cement worker's life of repairing construction sites everywhere. After spending a lot of time to repair the entire school site, Qin Ren applied to the principal to leave the school to carry out heroic activities. In the city, Lord Izil, standing in Qin Ren's pocket in the form of a 10-centimeter little man, with his hands on the edge of his pocket, like the third eye too on the figurine, called out. After being repeatedly corrected by Qin Ren for calling him Dad, he tried to use Your Majesty Izil but was still rejected by Qin Ren, and turned to using the address Lord Izil. What's wrong? Qin Ren glanced at her. Because of the vanity fragments, this little guy can change his body shape at will, and when using a small body, the consumption will be reduced a lot. She also felt that this state was very good, so she went directly into Qin Ren's pocket. Qin Ren originally wanted to reject her with dignity, but he couldn't stand the expectant look she showed. This child is super cute, who can resist it? Although it's fake, her current appearance is similar to her original form. Qin Ren couldn't help but roll his eyes in his heart. After he agreed, the little guy showed a snickering expression on his face. What do you want to do? I want to eat something. She raised her arms excitedly. Eat? What do you want to eat? Qin Ren thought about it and decided to find a Chinese restaurant. Although the so-called Chinese restaurants basically serve modified Chinese food, the taste is very strange, but at least they can eat more accustomed to it. Mind. The little girl raised her right hand and shouted, I can become stronger if I eat more. After hearing the first 2 words, Qin Ren wanted to refuse, but after hearing the latter, he hesitated. There is no doubt that with the ability of this little girl 32, she can provide him with help. In terms of strength alone, it can be compared with his current physical strength. One punch can produce a force equivalent to the impact of a 3-ton object. This is because her strength is affected by the amount of mana that the Holy Grail of Harmony can provide. If the Holy Grail of Harmony is upgraded, she can also extend her activity time and the power she can use will become stronger. Qin Ren glanced at his gold coins, 7,132. After defeating the mud monster that didn't look very strong, he actually got an E-level bag, which brought him nearly 300 gold coins. It takes 1,000 gold coins to upgrade from G level to F level. Do you want to spend it? It's better not to use it. Although she is useful, he needs to collect gold coins to upgrade magic power, mana value and mana recovery. Huh? What's wrong? Lord Izil, 32 blinked and tilted his head in a silly way. Qin Ren took a deep breath. This money, spend it. Want to eat souls? Eat. Wait. Will eating souls make people disabled like in the P5 world? Qin Ren asked. No, Lord Izil. She grabbed the edge of Qin Ren's pocket and said with her head raised, I won't eat it all like before. If I only eat part of it, I can recover after a while, so it's a renewable resource, then eat it, as long as no one dies and it doesn't cause too much impact. After Qin Ren nodded in agreement, a bright smile appeared on her face. Thank you, Lord Izil. She seemed to remember something at this time. By the way, Lord Izil, when you were intimidating the target, I can take the opportunity to intimidate. Qin Ren was confused for a moment, then reacted, that mud monster, fear? His eyes swept over the fear skill. When he was intimidating the target, 32 could perform mental invasion, but it stands to reason that in the yellow sand space, the pillar representing 32, and the yellow sand holy grail with a yellow sand key that is similar to a 1,000-year key, she should be able to directly enter the target's spiritual world, right? Or is the yellow sand key as a clone not powerful enough? Does he need his help? It's really hard to raise a daughter, and I have to find food for her. Qin Ren thought shamelessly. At this moment, he suddenly heard an explosion. The location of the explosion was about 1 kilometer to the north. 32. Sit down. Qin Ren bent his legs slightly and gathered strength. The little guy's energetic voice sounded, and his whole body shrank into his pocket. Boom! The powerful physical strength burst out, making him fly into the air like a cannonball. Although it is not as good as the pure physical strength of All Might, it is definitely better than most heroes. Few heroes can easily burst out the physical strength equivalent to more than 3 tons of weight. After flying more than 30 meters in the sky, Qin Ren held his right hand in the air, injected magic power into the Millennium Key, materialized the sand in the yellow sand space, and then condensed Desert Twin Dragon. It is slightly different from the Desert Flying Dragon. The appearance that imitates the appearance of the Cloud Dragon is named Desert Twin Dragon. Although it is not a good name, it is still okay for transition. After that, he will try to condense the Ra's Wing Dragon among the 3 mythical gods. Compared with wind dragons, Ra's Wing Dragon is more handsome. In a flash, the yellow sand condensed and formed a sturdy dragon body. The ferocious and fierce appearance instantly attracted the attention of the people below. Is that Long Jiu? No. Didn't you see the 2 reports this morning? That's the desert hero Izir. Izir? Is he a new professional hero? No, it's the former sand hero Snatch. He changed his hero name. Qin Ren's deeds have begun to spread unknowingly, and these influences are also bringing momentum to Qin Ren. Qin Ren's life and mana recovery speed are increasing with the increase of momentum. Being famous is sometimes good. Qin Ren couldn't help but think in his heart. Chapter 166. No one likes you because you are ugly, but you don't have to go out on the street to rob people. When Qin Ren arrived at the scene, he saw 2 professional heroes lying on the ground unable to move. 100 meters in front of them was a very sturdy man, but his body also looked very broad. He was a strong man, but he looked like a flattened strong man. What happened? Qin Ren fell down, and the quicksand dissipated, allowing him to return to human form. Are you Izir? The professional hero lying on the ground raised his head with difficulty and looked at Qin Ren. This person is villain, the culprit of many cases, named Tan Changshi. His personality is supergravity, which can make the gravity of objects he touches stronger. You have to be careful. Find a way to save the 2 children first. The other professional hero with 2 goat horns on his head said with gritted teeth. Both of them tried to lift their bodies, but villain's personality completely restricted them. When Qin Ren turned his head and looked at the child they were referring to, it was a boy with medium-length red hair, and his soft hair drooped down from both sides of his face. The boy opened his mouth, and his cracked shark teeth spat out angry words. Damn it! With such a strong personality, why don't you choose to be a hero, but become a villain? What's wrong with a strong personality? The short and sturdy Tan Changshi grabbed his arm, swung it hard, and threw him out, shouting, "Even if I did something." Those women still point fingers at appearances. After being thrown into the sky, the red-haired boy's body fell rapidly and was about to land on the ground. This urgent situation made the red-haired boy grit his teeth and activate his own personality. Harden. Visibly, his body suddenly hardened, and the hardened muscles arched up the surface of the skin into hard bulges, and the hardened skin looked like a piece of metal with human skin color. Boom! His body fell to the ground, smashing a big hole on the ground. He was only thrown less than 10 meters and fell, but the hole was like a hole smashed from a height of 100 meters. But even so, the red-haired boy still raised his head like a tough guy, with an attitude of not wanting to give in. Hardened? Even if you can harden your body surface, can your internal organs and spine also be hardened? I advise you not to resist. If you stand up, my quirk supergravity can crush your spine and shatter your internal organs. The short and strong man named Tan Changshi shouted at a woman who had fainted next to him. Even if I'm caught and thrown into prison, I want to have fun. Ashido, just because of this, you're really useless. The voice that sounded in the back made Tan Changshi slightly stunned, and then he immediately activated his quirk again. Nirvana, supergravity field. A supergravity field instantly enveloped the 5-meter range around the body. The nirvana practiced in school is not to add supergravity to the target, but to release a supergravity field around the body. No matter what object enters it, it will be subjected to 12 times the gravity. This kind of supergravity, no hero can escape. But a huge hand, 10 meters long and wide, slapped him on the top of his head. It smashed him directly into the ground. Qin Ren walked slowly to his side, looked at the short and strong man who was motionless in the pit, and turned his eyes to the extra bag of gold coins in the inventory. Are women so important? It's not like you can't live if you're single. You've fallen to the point of robbing women on the street because no women like you. Is your brain swollen? Shaking his head, Qin Ren glanced at his pocket, which had been empty for some time, and then glanced at the man who had fallen to the ground. It doesn't matter if the criminal's words are eaten, it doesn't matter even if the soul is eaten up, and there are so many people watching. It's completely possible to clear the relationship. Then, he turned his eyes to the boy who was slowly climbing up next to him. He looks familiar. Boy, you have a good personality. What's your name? Qin Ren asked the boy's name in the way of asking about his personality. Me? The boy was stunned, then smiled. My name is Kirishima Jiro. I thought your name was Lance. Kirishima? Is he the one from class of the first year of UI high school? He doesn't know why, but he always thought Kirishima's name was G20. Qin Ren still had a deep impression of him, especially that description, a passionate and cheerful red-haired boy. The scar on his right eye was caused by his hardened hand when he rubbed his eye when he woke up because he had to pee when he was 3 years old. His quirk is hardened, and although he thinks it is a very ordinary quirk, it is unexpectedly useful. However, he remembers that Kirishima should also have a hedgehog head. By the way, hardened. It seems that the hair can also be hardened. Looking at the opponent's sharp teeth and the smooth medium-length hair drooping down, Qin Ren complained in his heart, and then continued, Kirishima, right? Are you hurt? It's okay. Kirishima bent his right arm upwards, like a bodybuilder showing off his muscles. My quirk is hardening. There is no problem at all. At this time, the two professional heroes who were knocked down also came over. Thanks to you, Izir. Because this is near UA, there are relatively few hero offices here, and it is difficult for anyone to rush over immediately if something happens. The hero with goat horns rubbed his painful shoulder. There is also a python meeting nearby, and most people ran there, and no one noticed that there was a fight here. His tone was a little helpless. The hero next to him with blue scales similar to fish scales on his face also nodded. Then he covered his chest and smiled apologetically. Sorry, Izir, I need to treat my wound first. Kong, I'll leave the follow-up treatment to you too. Qin Ren nodded, watched the other party leave, and then he and the hero named Kong pulled the danch heavy stone out of the pit and tied it up. While waiting for the police to come, Qin Ren, Kong and the boy named Kirishima Jiro chatted. Speaking of which, the entrance exam for UA will start next month. Kirishima, are you going to take the entrance exam for UA? Yes. Kirishima turned his attention away from the pink-skinned woman leaning against the wall. I'm going to apply for UA. Then you have to work hard, Kong said. UA High School has a very high status. It is one of the most prestigious schools. Its hero department is also the best. All the teachers are professional heroes. The average deviation value of the students is as high as 79. The most popular hero department has an annual admission rate of less than 1/300, because there are usually only 36 admission places plus 4 recommended students, a total of 40 students. Hero Department A, B classes, General Department C, D, E classes, Auxiliary Department F, G, H classes, Business Department I, J, K classes. There are 3 grades in total. You will definitely be able to pass the exam, Qin Ren said. Izir, are you so confident in him? Hearing this, Kong was a little surprised. Kirishima was also surprised. He didn't expect that this powerful hero whom he had met for the first time and had never heard of before would have such high expectations for him. Mr. Izir, I will definitely not let you down. He clenched his fists manly. In his excitement, his hair and eyebrows hardened. The spikes of hair that stood up made him turn into a hedgehog head. Very good. Follow your momentum. Qin Ren smiled in his heart. In the original work, Kirishima entered class of UA with the 2nd place in the exam. It's no problem to guess after knowing the result. However, at this moment, Kirishimajiro's face suddenly changed. "Mr. Izil, be careful." While shouting, his body hardened and rushed to Qin Ren's back. P.S. I watched Hero Academy again and found that the previous blocked words could not completely block it. Add a few blocked words. Delicious. Self-respect. CP. It's really a new feeling every time I watch it. The power of love brain is indeed strong. No matter what kind of animation, it can become a love animation. It's the first time to add more than a dozen blocked words for one animation. Chapter 167, Punching with Real Force is the Romance of a Man. Tanchushi, who was tied up with ropes, suddenly opened his eyes, broke the ropes with force, and punched Qin Ren on the back of his head. As long as the attack hits, you're dead. His body, which had been trained under supergravity for a long time, was very strong, and it was not a problem for him to break the frame of a car with one punch. As long as he hit him with one punch, especially the head, he would be seriously injured if not dead. Moreover, his supergravity could also be activated to send this damn guy to Sanzu River. As for Kirishimajiro, who rushed out, he didn't take him seriously at all. Just relying on the body collision, this guy would be knocked out by him. Bang! As expected, Kirishima's flying action, which activated the hardening ability, had no effect on him at all. Under the impact of Tanchushi like a chariot, he was directly knocked away. The huge arm, as thick as Kirishima's body, slammed towards the back of Qin Ren's head. "Stand still, go to hell." "What?" Bang! Tanchuzongxi's eyes widened. He had his back to him just now. "Why?" The blond man in front of him turned around at some point, stretched out his hand, and blocked his fist. "I don't know how you blocked it, but no one can block my strength." The strong physical strength trained for a long time in a supergravity environment. Even an enhanced hero may not be able to defeat him, let alone this kind of person who doesn't look strong enough. The terrifying power burst out from his body and pressed on Qin Ren. At the same time, his quirk was activated, and the strongest gravity he could create, 12 times, pressed on Qin Ren. However, this power is very good, but it's not enough. Qin Ren stood still in place, supporting the opponent's fist with one hand. To be honest, Qin Ren himself didn't have much sense of his own strength. His physical strength could easily lift a 3-ton object, but he could also use a layer of sand on his hands to lift a nearly 10-ton object with sand. The sand armor that has been attached to his body can achieve this effect. As for the opponent's more than 10 times gravity, no problem at all. 20 times or 30 times is no problem. Can't react? His attack speed is 3.2f plus 60% g. He can make 32.6 attacks in 1 second. Moreover, he can clearly sense the vibration of the particles around him. He reacted the moment the rope broke. The reason why he turned around to defend at the last moment was to show his reaction. Why else? The expressions of Kikuo and Kirishima, who were worried, slightly surprised, a little happy, and relieved, were what he wanted. To put it bluntly, what he wanted was momentum value. He clenched the opponent's fist with his right hand and twisted it hard. With a click, the opponent screamed and fell to the ground with his left knee. Qin Ren slowly raised his left hand, and the quick sign condensed into a giant fist that was 30 meters long and wide. Obelisk heavy punch. Qin Ren, who was happy to name the move, had a cold face on the surface. "Are you ready?" Looking at the terrifying giant fist, not only Kirishima and Kikuo were shocked, but Tanchongshi also swallowed his saliva and smiled. "Brother, I'm kidding." "Really?" Qin Ren put down his right hand, and countless quicksands dispersed. In the blink of an eye, the 30-meter-high terrifying giant arm disappeared, but Qin Ren condensed a sand rope to tie up Tanchongshi. It is impossible to stretch it without the strength to lift a 10-ton object. At this time, the police arrived late. The leader was a police officer with a dog's head, and the deputy next to him was a police officer with a cat's head. The cat and dog family is not deceiving me. Seeing the police, Kikuo-chan and Kirishima both smiled. In this world, hero is actually a profession similar to police. After the follow-up treatment was completed, Qin Ren kidnapped the Kirishima boy, Mr. Izir, so you are a teacher at UE. Kirishimajiro looked at Qin Ren with excitement and clenched his fists. No wonder you are so powerful. I am just recuperating in UE. Qin Ren denied that he was a teacher. He is indeed not a teacher. According to the principal, he should be called a temporary worker. The principal asked him to stay in the school, but he was not a formal teacher. He could visit most courses at will and participate in some training. He has a relatively high degree of freedom. After he has mastered his personality and recovered, he can choose to leave. And the main reason for such a high degree of freedom is that he was once a student who graduated from UE. No, there is another reason. He is suspected. Although he has undergone identity verification, through the previous genetic information comparison, it was confirmed that he is indeed Higawara Sand-Dust. This suspicion has not been lifted, and he is still suspected. As for why he knew, building a sun disk underground can observe the entire teaching building. He also knows exactly what documents are in the drawers in the principal's office. The reason is that when he was in the hospital, Higawara Shachin was diagnosed as brain dead. Qin Ren's awakening in Higawara's body itself aroused suspicion, and the various moves Qin Ren used afterwards. For example, the phantom god descends, the giant god of obelisk, desert twin dragon form, yellow sand guards, petrified gaze and other moves are very different from Higawara Shachin, which can only turn part of the body into sand. Even if he used the reason of because of the head injury, the restrictions were lifted to prevaricate, he was still suspected. And Aizawa showed his use of his quirk on him at the school gate was not a sudden impulse, but a plan. Well, it was expected. Such a big change, it would be strange if he was not suspected. At this time, next to Qin Ren, Kirishima's excited voice sounded again. Hey, Mr. Izir, do you have an office? Office? Of course I do. In this society where all kinds of information are open, it is still very convenient to check something. Qin Ren naturally checked his information after waking up. He has an office of his own, and has hired more than a dozen heroes as employees. But because he had an accident and decided to go to UE after waking up, the office was originally going to be temporarily closed. However, those employees did not plan to close, so Qin Ren naturally let them maintain the office. Why did Kirishima ask this? Want to come to my office? I heard that you and Rinyu Reiyato are students of the same class of hero science, and you work in the same office together. Okay. I guessed wrong. Rinyu Reiyato is a tough manly hero who fights very heroically, that is, the so-called hot-blooded hero. My current office is not the one I used to work with Reiyato. However, speaking of hardline fighting, Qin Ren looked at his hands. By attaching the sand armor to the body, and then using the power through the sand of the sand armor, you can also create a hardline fighting style for yourself. 32 punches in 1 second. It is completely no problem to hit Aura. Fighting in this way should also bring a lot of momentum. When Obelisk comes, just use it as a big move. Hey, maybe you can use Obelisk's God Soldier form to play Aura. Wouldn't that be more powerful? Thanks to book friends P0 Siki and Zfenio for the 100 starting coins reward. Chapter 168, Higawara Snake. A month passed in the blink of an eye. Although it was a leisurely time, I still defeated dozens of villains and collected more than 9,000 gold coins. No, 10,000. Qin Ren's eyes swept over the 2 villains lying on the ground. You got 436 yellow sand gold coins. You got an F-level certificate. You got 25 yellow sand gold coins. Bounty, 9,784 yellow sand gold coins. 10,245, G-level certificate, 41, F-level certificate, 12, 13, E-level certificate, 5, spell power and mana. Then let's increase the mana first. He is not short of damage. Although many heroes have strong personal attack power, their physical defense is as good as paper compared to the damage they can cause. Not to mention that he can now casually create a force equivalent to lifting a 10-ton weight. Even if it is 1/10, those villains can't stop it. Moreover, he was given a task by Zhongying. For this task, he gave priority to increasing the upper limit of mana and the amount of sand he could control. Mana can increase the upper limit of sand control, 10,245 coins. 245 coins, mana plus E, mana, 100%, 6.5 F, 1.65 E, in the yellow sand space, Qin Ren's body, on the sun disk, a stream of heat surged, making him feel a feeling like his muscles were tightening. 1.65 E equals 16.5 F equals 165 G, equivalent to 19,750 kilograms, which can control nearly 20 tons of sand. If it continues to improve at this rate, D level will be more than 100 tons. However, the yellow sand gold coins consumed to upgrade from E level to D level are 100,000 coins. Looking at the remaining 245 yellow sand gold coins, am I too relaxed? Just treat it as the end of the vacation. If I were still in my original world, it would probably be almost the end of the new year, or the end of the New Year holiday. Coincidentally, today is the entrance exam for UA. After today, I will start to collect gold coins. Qin Ren's eyes turned to the distance, and the sun had just risen. At this moment, a voice sounded in his ears. A venomous snake with a sandy yellow body crawled out from his arm. Then, the body twisted, and the upper body turned into a human form. A woman who was only a dozen centimeters tall sat on his shoulders and said with a smile, "Father." From Dad to Lord Izir and now Father, 32 kept changing the name. Personality should probably be called capricious. Although it is not a compliment, her personality is indeed changeable. Qin Ren can't figure out her personality. Sometimes she will call Dad or Father with an innocent face, sometimes she will call Izir-sama with a serious face, and sometimes she will stare at the target with a vicious but innocent look, like a venomous snake hunting its prey, wanting to devour the soul. Speaking of which, 32 will also take the exam for UA. At this time, a voice sounded, "Yo Izir, you got up early." Qin Ren cast his eyes over. A muscular man with horns on his head, wearing sportswear, trotting all the way from a distance. While running, he raised his right hand and waved it, greeting him. Kakusho Neto, personality, impact horn, can make the horn rotate like a drill, and the attack method is to attack like a goat or a bull. Good morning, Kakusho, Qin Ren replied. However, when he came to Qin Ren and saw the two people lying on the ground, he was stunned. What's going on? Villain? It seems so. I've seen the wanted poster before. Qin Ren nodded. The person who gave him the E-level bag seemed to be a particularly dangerous criminal who had committed many major crimes. The man with the square head seemed to have defeated the top 10 heroes in the hero ranking. I'm going back to Zhanying. You should be careful. He is very dangerous. Qin Ren glanced at the two people on the ground and said, although their hands and feet were accidentally broken by me, their personalities are still very dangerous. The news Qin Ren said made Kakuo Neto startled. Then we have to tie them up quickly. Rope, rope. Kakuo Neto looked around and looked for ropes everywhere. At this moment, a figure appeared beside the two people. Do you need my help? A tall girl raised her arm energetically. Who are you? Kakuo Neto looked at the girl in front of him with some confusion. She wore a snake crown on her head that looked like a venomous snake, long orange-yellow hair, and a pair of vertical brown pupils. If you look closely, you can find a faint pink. She wore a desert-style long skirt and a tube top, revealing a healthy belly. She had some skin similar to snake scales, but it was not ugly, but rather had a strange sense of temptation. Looking at her, Qin Ren couldn't help but raise his eyebrows. I'm Mr. Izir's daughter. Daughter? Kakuo Neto widened his eyes and looked at Qin Ren next to him. Mr. Izir, do you have a daughter? Adopted. Qin Ren's mouth twitched. You little guy should remember the settings. During this period, 32 was not idle either. She had been devouring souls everywhere. After knowing that the UA exam was coming, she also wanted to go to UA. Then, when he was doing hero activities this month, he happened to meet a girl whose personality was snake-like. The other family was crushed to death by the building destroyed by the villain. Qin Ren let 32 occupy the identity of the dead girl. Then, he deliberately made up a series of touching stories, and then he adopted 32 smoothly. This series of operations was really troublesome. After Purgatory knew about the matter, he also begged him to come out, and then Qin Ren's eyes turned to 32's shoulder, where a lizard was lying. My name is Higawara Snake Jiu. Noticing Qin Ren's expression, she also reacted. Adopt? Kakuo Nato looked at 32, and then seemed to remember something. Is it that thing? Sympathy appeared in his eyes, and then he nodded. Please. Then, 32 blinked, and then leaned forward, but as her body leaned forward, her legs stuck together, and pieces of snake scales emerged, instantly wrapped around her legs, and then extended. In the blink of an eye, she became half human and half snake, and then the 2-meter-long snake tail twisted around the two people, and the long snake tail tied them up. Such a change also surprised Kakuo Nato. Is it a beast-like personality? Yes, but please be quick. I still have to take the exam, 32 shouted in a very energetic voice, looking like a cheerful girl. But only Qin Ren could notice that her snake eyes, staring at the two tied-up people, were filled with murderous intent for prey. Hungry again? Qin Ren certainly knew what she was thinking. She wanted to devour the souls of the two people. Then I'll go first. He shook his head and spread his arms. The sandy yellow quicksand instantly condensed into the posture of a cloud dragon. The wings rolled up a huge storm, and Qin Ren flew away. Chapter 169 Getting Started. Izir, you're finally back. Standing in front of the school gate was a woman wearing thin white tights. From a passerby's perspective, she could be classified as sexy. Combined with the half-face mask on her face, she was exactly the kind of girl you see in some adult bars. Hence the nickname 18+ hero. Her official hero name is Midnight. Her personality is sleep fragrance. She can release a body fragrance from her body that is enough to hypnotize her opponent and make them fall asleep. It is more effective on men than on women. The other person was Mike. He called Qin Ren's hero name in a terrifying voice that sounded like a night square dance. It's already 7 o'clock. At 8 o'clock, the candidates will be organized to give a collective explanation. The formal exam will start at 8:30. Sorry, I just caught two villains, so I'm late. Qin Ren's body fell to the ground, the quicksand dissipated, and he returned to human form. Two? They are still so rampant even though they are near the heroes. Midnight shook his head. No, they were hiding, but were discovered by Shejiu. After notifying me, I took care of it. Qin Ren attributed the credit for the discovery to 32. Shejiu, is that the child you adopted some time ago? Midnight showed a teasing smile on his face. He also specially helped her with various procedures so that she could participate in the assessment of the U.E. He is really a good father at this time. Mike next to her spread his hands and said, but, Izir, you can't favor her during the exam. Although there have been examples of people taking the UE entrance exam before graduating from middle school, there are no exceptions in the exam. I know. Qin Ren nodded. The identity of the girl replaced by 32 was a second-year junior high school student. In principle, it was not allowed to take the UE exam, but there have been examples in UE before, so it's not a big deal. With her personality, she will definitely pass. Qin Ren's tone was full of trust. Her quirk is snake transformation, right? It's not difficult for a beast transformation quirk to pass the practical test, but it's not too strong either. Midnight judged based on her own experience. Anyway, you'll all be watching, and you'll definitely be able to tell if I'll cheat for her. Just kidding. The strength 32 showed. Even if it was in Academy City, it would be no problem to rank in the top 4, 5, and in this world, it would be no problem to rank in the top 10 among professional heroes. As for who is stronger and weaker in a fight with Qin Ren, he will definitely win, because 32 and Purgatory are both products of the yellow sand space, and he can directly control 32's actions. Excluding this factor, he will also win. 32's moves are useless to him. Rage and physical strength, although it is indeed very strong, combined with the power of anger, it can exert almost half of his magic power at most, but due to the consumption problem, she is still much weaker than Qin Ren. Charm? Qin Ren's body is no longer human. What can she charm? Moreover, if you want to charm him and exert influence on him, you have to break into the yellow sand space, which is equivalent to Qin Ren's home court, which is almost like breaking into the spring vanity that changes its form at will. The sun disk teaches her how to behave. Afterwards, due to time constraints, Qin Ren chatted with the two. While he was chatting with the two, A figure suddenly flew down from the sky and fell beside Qin Ren, All Might in a strong man's posture. All Might, where have you been again? Midnight and Mike asked at the same time. Ha 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 ha, of course I went to exercise. All Might posed as a bodybuilder and laughed to evade the question. Qin Ren thought about the speed of the other party in the air just now. It was about 1/30th slower than before. Has One for All been handed over to Izir Qin? After handing over One for All, the original holder's power will gradually weaken, although it is very weak, with Qin Ren's current reaction speed and judgment, as well as this month of getting along. He can clearly sense that the other party has begun to weaken. Looking at All Might, who was laughing and evading the question, Qin Ren raised the corner of his mouth with some evil interest. You are so strong, are you still working hard to train? Speaking of which, Snake Jiu said that he caught your breath near the coast. All Might, are you training near the coast? Snake Jiu? Snake Jiu girl, the little girl with dangerous eyes. Ahem, yes. I pass by there when I run, All Might said, and steam came out of his body, and his body shrank into a skinny skeleton. Okay, let's go to the venue quickly. Except for the principal, who already knew about One for All, he did not intend to disclose the matter of One for All in the air. At least, before the exam was over, he would not even disclose the contact with the Madrya boy. At All Might's urging, everyone returned to the UA school. Not long after, a group of students who participated in the admissions examination came to the school one after another. After checking their identity information at the school gate, they entered UA. In front of the gate, a green-haired boy stood at the school gate, looking at the huge gate of UA in a trance. This month, he has undergone a complete devil training. No, hell training. Unimaginable, horrible training. Devil. All Might is a devil. All Might, whom he admires the most, is a devil. Madrya Izuku's legs were trembling a little. Until yesterday, he was still undergoing extremely heavy physical training. The quirk he got must be supported by a strong body. However, even after this month of devil training, he still received the evaluation that time is too short. Your device has not been polished yet. You should be careful when using it. At this time, his shoulder was suddenly patted by someone. Hey, what's wrong with you? You are shaking so much. Are you too nervous? Turning around, a red-haired boy with a hard hedgehog head that looked like metal stood next to him. Don't be nervous. Just show your strength. Kirishima Jiro clenched his fists with passion and cheered up this stranger. Okay, thank you. It's okay. I'm a little nervous too. The girl with the bob haircut who passed by the two heard their conversation and said familiarly, it's the UA exam. I hope I can pass it. Then let's work hard together. The passionate boy Kirishima shouted. Oh, by the way, my name is Kirishima. Oh, the girl with the bob haircut followed suit, and after hearing the other party's self-introduction, she also said, I'm Okako Uraraka. I'm Izuku Madrya. What are you doing? Why are you blocking the way at the gate? A tall and sturdy man with glasses who passed by had a serious expression on his face. It's almost time. Enter at least 10 minutes in advance. If you are listening to this novel on a channel other than Fanfic World, it means they downloaded and uploaded it without effort. We cordially invite you to visit our channel, Mundo Fanfic Novelist. There you'll find the original version of this story and you can explore many other novels of various genres. We are waiting for you to immerse yourself in a world of incredible novels. Chapter 170. The exam begins. Dear candidates and audience, welcome to my live broadcast. Everyone say hey. Mike was speaking in high spirits in the temporarily occupied lecture hall. However, the last sentence he said in English did not receive the cheers from the candidates as he expected. The students sat in their seats, slightly excited but keeping quiet, and cast their eyes on the big screen behind Mike. That's the voice hero Brisant Mac, an active radio DJ host. I didn't expect him to be a teacher at Of course, unlike other schools, every lecturer at is a professional hero. But his taste is a bit bad. Really? I think it's okay. No way. Look at his hairstyle. It's too weird. Ahem. Mac coughed. Then, I will briefly explain the outline of the actual test to you. Are you ready? After waiting for a few seconds, seeing that no one answered, Mac continued calmly. Yeah. After the explanation,
You will go to the 7 training grounds of Kfging site according to the venue number on your admission ticket to participate in the simulated block exercise for practical skills testing. You can bring anything. An inadvertent reminder was inserted in the middle of the sentence. The students took out their admission tickets one after another. The passionate boy Kirishima also discussed with his classmates. Ashido, which examination room are you in? I'm in examination room C. Sitting next to him was a girl with pink skin. Even though our exam car numbers are similar, Kirishima and I are not in the same exam room. The girl called Ashido blinked. I'm in exam room G. The girl's eyes fell on her admission ticket. UA, high school admission ticket, admission number, 2463, examination location, practice venue G, name, Ashido Mitsuna, gender, female, volunteered subject, hero department, examination time, February 26, 9:0011:00, venue, UA, high school. Please arrive at the examination venue and gather before 8 o'clock on the same day. After talking to Kirishima for a few words, the two continued to listen to the teacher with the broom head. There are 3 types of mechanical imaginary enemies in the training ground. There are a lot of them, and corresponding points are given according to the difficulty of their respective strategies, which are 1, 2, and 3 points respectively. What you have to do is to use your own personality to defeat them and get points. At this moment, someone raised his hand. I have a question. Can I ask it? Everyone turned their eyes over, and Kirishima also said, it's the strict man with glasses who I met at the school gate just now. Okay. Mike snapped his fingers, and a light pointed at the other party. However, before he could ask the question, a lively female voice rang out, Teacher Brescent, can I use my quirk to attack other people? Mike snapped his fingers again, and another light came on. Attacking others is contrary to the heroic spirit and is strictly prohibited. The man with glasses, who was beaten to the question, widened his eyes. You actually asked a question first. What if I don't attack others, but accidentally disturb others by using my quirk? The teacher will judge according to the situation. Mike replied, do you have any other questions? No more. Okay. Next one. Mike pointed his finger at the man with glasses. It's your turn. The man with glasses straightened his back, like a model student. There are 4 imaginary enemies written on the list. Okay. Your question is very good. Mike interrupted him before he finished speaking, as if he knew what question the other party was going to ask. The next moment, the image of the 4th imaginary enemy appeared on the screen behind him, but the outline was black with a question mark framed in it. The last imaginary enemy has no points. In other words, it is a distraction. Even if you defeat it, you can only get 0 points. Mike remained calm, and his tone did not change from before. Its strength is very strong. I suggest that you choose to avoid it. By the way, the last imaginary enemy may be a mechanical imaginary enemy like the first 3 enemies, or it may be a professional hero. Yes, in this exam, a professional hero will appear, playing the role of villain, using his personality to attack you indiscriminately, and all you have to do is to balance your strength and make due judgments. We will judge and score based on your actions. The first item is the point score, and the second item is the comprehensive score. A real professional hero should also have the correct judgment. Mike clapped his hands on the table. Okay, next, give full play to your personality and get on the bus. The door of the lecture hall was opened, and from the corridor windows outside the door, one could see buses neatly lined up together. What are you waiting for? Get on the bus. With his last roar, the students walked out of the classroom in unison. Practice Field C. There are a total of 20 huge practice fields as big as a small town, located around the main teaching area of UA High School. The scene in each field is a simulation of a real street scene, and Qin Ren is on the top of a building in Practice Field C. Izil, are you ready? The principal's voice came from the headset, just like what I said before. Next, you will be the imaginary enemy D. Use your quirk to move forward along the route in Practice Field C and attack the students you meet. Of course, you must be careful not to hurt them too seriously, and don't deviate from the route of action. Once they escape, there is no need to chase and attack them. As for the students who attack you, you can fight back, but at most you can only break bones, legs, and hands. Don't let them get hurt too badly. Do you understand? Yes, I know. He really didn't expect to be the imaginary enemy, but he was not the only one. Other teachers also acted as imaginary enemies in various fields. After waiting for a while, Qin Ren saw a bus parked outside the practice field. As the door slowly opened, a group of candidates entered the venue. Qin Ren also walked over. There were 30 candidates. Everyone. Qin Ren, who was not very good at speaking in front of a lot of people, kept a straight face and expressionless face, watching everyone get off the bus and recited the rules. Next, you have 10 minutes to carry out activities. In the limited time, you need to defeat villains as much as possible. While he was explaining the rules, Shurima in the crowd opened his eyes with a little surprise. It turned out to be Mr. Izir. Izir, is he the desert hero who captured nearly 100 villains in the past month and was promoted to the 10th hero ranking? No way. He is actually a teacher here. Okay. Does anyone not understand the rules? Do you need to explain it again? Qin Ren asked again after repeating the rules. No more, Shurima shouted in the lead. Then, next, the exam begins. As Qin Ren pressed the switch of the start controller in his hand, countless mechanical imaginary enemies in the venue without rules began to move. The candidates standing in front of the gate also rushed into the venue as Qin Ren announced the start of the exam. Chapter 171 Momentum. According to the explanation of the voice hero, I need to find the mechanical imaginary enemies quickly within 10 minutes and kill them. A young man with a crow's head, wearing a black cloak, stood at the intersection, looking around with sharp eyes. In an instant, his sight caught a glimpse of green shadow. Okay. From under his black cloak, a group of shadows that looked like birds and snakes emerged and flew quickly towards the green. The hands condensed by the shadows passed through the joints of the 2-meter-tall mechanical imaginary enemy, accurately tearing the outer shell of the wire and the wire together. With the splash of electric light, the body of the mechanical imaginary enemy exploded, and on the electronic screen, in the column that read Chang and stepping on Yin, the number 20 jumped up and became 21. In just 2 minutes, he had killed 8 imaginary enemies and scored 21 points. Chang and stepping on Yin, the personality shadow, has a black shadow that can be materialized in his body, which can be stretched and deformed freely. Shadows will have a surge in attack power in the dark, but will also become difficult to control or even run away. In the sun, they will be in a state of weak attack power, but their accuracy will be greatly increased. At this moment, a rumbling sound suddenly sounded, which startled him. Turning his eyes to the source of the sound, he saw a huge, more than 30 meters tall humanoid monster slowly walking on the street next to him. Every step he took would bring about a vibration and rumbling sound like an earthquake. When he looked at the other party seemed to notice him and turned his head to look at him. The giant god soldier, which was several meters taller than the surrounding buildings, easily swept across the roof of a building and looked at Chang and Ta Yin. Is this the 4th type of imaginary enemy? The name of this move promoted to the outside world is Obelisk's giant god soldier. A series of judgments flashed through his mind in an instant. This giant with a hideous and terrifying appearance and full of momentum is the famous move of the desert hero Izir, who has recently become famous. When the other party looked over, Chang and Tan, who had reacted, immediately jumped out and used the building as a cover to avoid the attack. Boom, boom, boom. The rumble of footsteps accompanied by the vibration gradually moved away, making Chang and Tan breathe a sigh of relief. The shadow that had retracted into his body also poked his head out again, touched his head and said, "That was a close call. Mr. Izir has undoubtedly discovered me." But the eye contact made him very sure that the other party had discovered his existence. But why didn't the other party attack? According to the test rules, he should launch an attack. No, in the assessment, professional heroes can take them too seriously, and they must relax somewhere. And the place to relax, unlike the imaginary enemy who attacks everyone he sees, is it just patrolling along the route? Only those who stand in the way will be attacked? Chang and Ta Yin made an imaginary guess, staring at the back of the giant god for a few seconds, and turned away. There is no time to think about it. Defeat more imaginary enemies as soon as possible and get points. Didn't you try to attack? Through the sun disk in the body of the sand giant god, he observed the surrounding scene and clearly observed the movements of every student within a kilometer. Chang Ta-Hyun was far away from his actions, so he naturally discovered it. The 0-point imaginary enemy he played was equivalent to a powerful enemy. The correct way to deal with it was that heroes with insufficient strength would dodge and avoid unnecessary casualties. And being able to defeat the 0-point imaginary enemy was not completely meaningless. After all, in this heroic society, even the most powerful villain must be dealt with. Defeating this 0-point imaginary enemy will not get any points in the first assessment, but in the second comprehensive assessment, special extra points can be obtained. Moreover, as a professional hero, he needs to help others, whether it is other heroes or civilians. In front of Qin Ren, two candidates were running away at an accelerated speed. Qin Ren clenched his fist, and the giant fist, which was 5 or 6 meters wide, like two trucks side by side, slowed down and smashed down slowly. But even if he slowed down and only used 1/10 of the speed, with the size of the giant god's fist, smashing at a speed of nearly 10 meters per second, the two people could not escape the attack range. It might kill people. Qin Ren, who made this judgment, changed the direction and smashed his fist to the side of the two people. With a terrifying loud noise, the concrete floor was smashed by his punch, and the spider web-like cracks instantly spread over a range of dozens of meters. The broken concrete slabs pried the two people up. At this time, more than 10 green vines flew out, tied up the two people's bodies, and pulled them to the right. A girl with green thorny hair, who looked to be 16 or 17 years old, immediately dragged the person away after saving him. 3-tone yen, 3-tone silkwork, vines, manipulates vine-like hair, which is as hard as iron wire. It can be stretched and retracted freely, can be used to take objects from the air, and can be cut at will for attack and defense. Like the jungle god, it has plant properties and can grow quickly with enough sunlight and water. In the monitoring room where a group of teachers from the UE sat, a group of teachers raised their scorecards. Special rescue points are part of the comprehensive assessment points. Helping others and rescuing others are all items in the special rescue points. Can I not chase them? Watching them go away, Qin Ren's body embedded in the head of the giant god soldier twisted slightly and said to the headset, "Of course." The principal replied to him in a childlike voice, "Just keep moving forward along the route." Qin Ren continued to move forward slowly, and his heavy body left one huge footprint after another on the concrete floor. In the distance, Kirishima Jiro was speeding up and rushing towards a mechanical imaginary enemy. Enemies spotted, lots of them. The eyes of the mechanical imaginary enemy, which imitated human eyes, flashed red, and a rough and ferocious mechanical synthesis sound rang out. The mechanical arm, like a battering ram, blasted out forcefully at Kirishima Jiro, who was charging at him. Kirishima's body suddenly hardened, especially his hands, which hardened into a completely hard body like steel. His body tilted down slightly, and he blasted the mechanical imaginary enemy's arms from bottom to top with a rising dragon punch. Boom! The fists and irons met, and his hardened fists blasted directly into the imaginary enemy's mechanical arms. The damage caused by the damaged components caused sparks to burst out of the mechanical arms. Red Gauntlet, pulling his fist out of the metal, Kirishima stepped on the mechanical imaginary enemy's body, kicked hard, and punched the imaginary enemy's head fiercely. 27-29 points. That's it. Keep up the momentum. Get more than 50 points in one go. After killing the enemy, Kirishima continued to look for imaginary enemies to attack without stopping. Chapter 172 Problem Child, Practice Field D. In the shadow of the building, a tall young man with a mask covering his mouth and 2 pairs of tentacles with wing membranes on his shoulders was standing on the roof. At the end of his arm, connected by membrane-like skin, the fist was twisted and turned into eyes and ears. Looking around, the teachers in the exercise monitoring room watched this young man through the monitor. Shashimzo. His quirk is copy arm. He can copy any organ of his body, whether it is an arm, eyes, mouth or ear. Each copy point can extend an additional copy arm,
but the control will be reduced. Copy the eyes and ears for wide area reconnaissance. His ability is still quite useful in reconnaissance. Well, attack power, mobility, skills, judgment, team coordination. These are the necessary conditions for hero review. The petite principal mouse discussed with other teachers around him. He has a special performance in reconnaissance, and his fighting style during the discussion. Shashimzo in the picture suddenly ran, bypassed the building in front, and found a green mechanical imaginary enemy inside the building. Instantly, his replica wrists transformed and twisted into arms. The 6 arms stretched forward and hugged the neck of the mechanical enemy from behind, pulling it down hard. Boom. With the powerful force of the 6 arms, he dragged the body of the imaginary enemy directly to the ground. When the mechanical imaginary enemy lost balance and fell to the ground, Shashimzo used force again, and the 6 arms moved together to directly tear open the iron sheet on the head of the imaginary enemy, holding one end of the iron sheet, and directly smashed the head component of the mechanical imaginary enemy. 8:11. The speed is a bit slow. I don't know if I can catch up. Shashimzo's palms turned into a mouth and uttered to himself, the imaginary enemy with a metal body cannot be attacked directly with fists. His original fighting method was to use fists to attack directly, but if he used fists to attack the enemy with a metal shell directly, he would be injured. This method was the only way. One hand grabbed a piece of iron sheet, and Shashimzo walked out while the 4 replica wrists on his body transformed again, forming eyes and ears. In front, as soon as he started to investigate, he heard a sound coming from 100 meters to his left, and a man with glasses and puffing air from his feet was speeding towards the direction of the sound. I wonder if I can catch up. Itatenya, who was speeding towards the imaginary enemy, raised his glasses, and the engines on his legs spewed gas to speed up his movements. According to the current pace, with the mobility brought by my quirk engine, and the orange juice I drank beforehand can support me, I can probably get 40 to 60 points. His quirk is 2 6-pipe engines in his calves, and the fuel consumed is 100% pure orange juice. Thoughts flashed through his mind, and his eyes under his black-framed glasses were fixed on the imaginary enemy target. He accumulated power in his legs, controlled his quirk to suddenly explode, and the acceleration brought by the engine acceleration and the height of the jump. At this distance, I can kick the imaginary enemy's head directly. Itatenya, who jumped up, slightly adjusted his posture and kicked the imaginary enemy, who turned his head when he noticed his presence. I'll take this point. A trace of white light flashed on his glasses. However, at this moment, a thick snake tail suddenly appeared beside the imaginary enemy, and whipped out like a whip. Boom. The imaginary enemy's body was torn into pieces by the snake tail like a paper model. A girl with a human on top and a snake on the bottom suddenly appeared beside the imaginary enemy, and the thick snake tail that was whipped out was her lower body. What? Itatenya, who was completely unable to stop his body, flew over the imaginary enemy that was torn into pieces and stopped more than 20 meters away. Who was that girl just now? Itatenya turned his head and looked in the direction of the imaginary enemy. The other party was also looking at him, showing her bright white teeth, and the 2 snake teeth that were retracted backwards stood up as she opened her mouth. Snake. After the slightly surprised voice sounded, he remembered who the other party was, the girl who answered the question in the lecture hall. Hey, you. Itatenya was about to say something when he saw the other party's body suddenly fade and disappear. Invisible? No, that's not right. Snake. Camouflage? Itatenya pondered. At this moment, Mike's loud broadcasting voice sounded at the same time in all the training grounds. Hey everyone, there are only 5 minutes and 30 seconds left. Hearing the voice, Itatenya thought to himself that it was not good, and he got into position. The 12-engine exhaust pipes on his legs sprayed gas, and his figure disappeared from the spot in a flash. Itatenya, with strong mobility, relying on his long-trained body and engine personality, he can cause powerful attacks through his legs. Well, his tactical performance is also very good. Although he is relatively weak in reconnaissance, he can make up for his shortcomings with his high mobility and excellent judgment of the imaginary enemy. However, during the operation, He found that other candidates were in danger several times, but he did not rescue them. No, he tried to rescue them, but he did not do it. The special rescue points will be based on the performance in the remaining 5 minutes. The judging teachers began to score. After making a preliminary judgment on Tenya Ida, the teachers began to discuss another candidate, Higawara Jiku. Her quirk snake transformation allows her to transform her body into a snake. She can do everything a snake can do, including changing the color of her body to create a camouflage color that blends in with the surrounding environment. A chameleon? Although it is very common in reptiles such as chameleons, it is still quite rare among snakes. I remember there is a snake called Kapua's mud snake, which can change color. The teachers in the exercise monitoring room discussed, although not as good as Tenya Ida, she has excellent mobility. Her quirk has the ability to detect smells, and she can also deceive the imaginary enemy's sight through camouflage before launching a sneak attack. She is quite strong in attack, has good mobility, and is also excellent in the use of skills and judgment, but she did not carry out a rescue operation. On the contrary, although it was not carried out, she had the intention of deliberately interfering with other candidates. She did not spend her time looking for the imaginary enemy, but deliberately snatched the target one step ahead of others. This personality is quite a bad taste. This daughter adopted by Izir has some personality problems. If she continues like this, she will only get 0 points. But she has already got 37 points in such a short time. In the remaining few minutes, it will be no problem to reach 50 points. She has a strong comprehensive personality with a wide range of applications. She is also good at using it, but she is a problem child because of her excellent personality. Compared to her, this personality is frog blowing plum rain. Although her physical strength is not enough, she is also quite good at comprehensive application and has also rescued other candidates. The judges discussed the results. Finally, their eyes turned to the screen. A green-haired boy was panicking and looking for an imaginary enemy everywhere, but every time he rushed to the location of the imaginary enemy, he could only find wreckage. The wreckage of the imaginary enemy destroyed by others. What should I do? Villain. Where is villain? And his total score, 0 points. Thanks to the book friend Lujabai66 for the reward of 200 starting coins. Chapter 173 Happiness is all. 3 minutes left. Mike's voice sounded again. In each training field, all the students quickened their pace. And 32 also smiled. His body suddenly faded and disappeared into the air. There is no doubt that the winner is me, a charming blonde boy of 15 or 16 years old, with his hands behind his head, thrust his waist forward, and a blue laser shot out from his abdomen and pierced through the head of a mechanical imaginary enemy in the distance. This time, I will. However, the prompt that should have sounded nearby, representing his score, did not appear. Higawara Snake, 5861. The boy's eyes widened, and next to the mechanical imaginary enemy, a beautiful girl who was on top of him threw him a flying kiss. However, in this case, it was not a young man's encounter, but a complete provocation. The moment he spoke, the other party's figure faded again and disappeared into the air. My points. Ayama quirk, naval laser, can emit laser light from the navel, a quirk with excellent attack power, but not strong in mobility. In terms of skills, it can only fire linear lasers. There is a rescue operation, by the way. That Snake Jiu is stealing other people's points again. Really, Izir's adopted daughter, has this personality change because of the accident in which her parents passed away? She is very good at using her quirk. When she uses camouflage, even thermal imaging cameras can't capture her. Does her body temperature also change with the ambient temperature? But isn't the speed of change too fast? Well, we need to continue to explore her personality, and it will be easier to make plans for personality training later. Let's talk about the personality issue later. The first thing to correct is her personality. No, although her personality is very bad, she didn't attack others. But there was no rescue either. 32 This little guy is really... Qin Ren couldn't help but twitched his mouth when listening to the discussion in the exercise monitoring room coming from the headset. If he couldn't make trouble, he would just steal people's heads. During this month, Qin Ren also basically understood the character of the little snake girl he raised at home. She was capricious, played all kinds of weird pranks, and was just looking for fun. Qin Ren didn't intend to care. He restricted her to not swallow the whole soul when she was devouring it, to spare a life, and not to kill people casually. She could do whatever she wanted. Not to mention, in this world, there were not many people who could beat her. Even if she couldn't beat him, she could directly remove the materialization of the yellow sand key and return to a state of consciousness similar to the soul. In this state of consciousness, the Hero Academy currently has no personality related to the soul, so it's no problem to say that she is invincible. Another thing is, her strength is closely related to the Holy Grail of Harmony. Now the Holy Grail of Harmony can only exert such strength at the G level. If it is upgraded to the same level as E level, what will it become? Just as he was thinking and walking forward, two people rushed out 100 meters in front of him. Oh no, it's here. It was an orange-haired girl with a side ponytail and a white-haired girl with a side punk. The two had just defeated the imaginary enemy in the room, but because of the vibration caused by his footsteps, they didn't know the source, so they guessed the route in a panic and ran into him directly. Run, you lynx eye. After saying this, the orange-haired girl's two palms suddenly grew larger, expanding to more than 1 meter wide. She stretched out her two big hands, grabbed her companions and turned around to run back. It's a good decision to run away immediately, but your escape route did not leave my patrol route, so you can't blame me for that. Qin Ren had a hint of evil smile on his face, and the giant god soldier's huge body slowly moved forward. This slow movement was only for Qin Ren. For the two people who were running away, his pace was twice as fast as theirs. The giant god soldier's huge body, each step is 15 to 20 meters. Kento, Mr. Izir's fist is so big, even bigger than your hand. The white-haired punk girl blinked and made a sound. Why are you still so calm in this situation? Although her strength is much greater than that of ordinary people due to her quirk and long-term training, she can't run fast while holding a person. My quirk is very similar to Mr. Izir's. He is so powerful that he can lift so much sand. I can only lift one person at most. You lynx eye, quirk, soul phenomenon, can control the objects around her to float and move, but can only move the weight equivalent to one person's weight at most. Rather than that, it's better to think about how to escape. The girl called Kendo shouted helplessly. Kendo Ike, quirk big fist, can make his palms grow to a size close to the whole body. Although I want to say that you can rest and I will use my quirk to carry you, but I guess we can't run away. You lynx I said very calmly. Why, what's the problem? Because she grabbed Yu Lynx Eye and ran forward. Yu Lynx Eye was looking back. However, a shadow suddenly passed over her head and stopped in front of her. As if thinking of something, Kendo Ike stopped and turned his head to look back. The ferocious giant, which was a head taller than a 10-story building, was on their right arm, placed on top of their heads, as if to say that he was going to smash them down if they didn't surrender. Do you want to try to resist? If you can hold on, you can be considered to have escaped, Qin Ren said with a rather malicious taste. No need, we admit defeat. Kendo Ikik aside, looking at the 30-meter-tall ferocious giant god soldier. With her personality, she couldn't think of a way out. You lynx I thought it was possible. 8 minutes and 23 points. 2 minutes left. I got 16 points. You lynx I blinked, as if she remembered something, and a wave of fluctuation appeared in her lifeless eyes. But Mr. Izir, time is up. Time is up. Mike's voice sounded on the radio in all the training grounds. But at the same time, a rumble sounded in the training ground of area next door. It sounded like a giant steel falling down. Giant steel? Could it be that, at the training ground B, everyone was staring at the giant imaginary enemy lying on the ground with their mouths wide open? The giant mechanical imaginary enemy, as tall as a building, was just knocked down by a punch from the shivering, weak green-haired boy. What's his name? I think it's Izuku Midoriya. Is he that strong? But his hands, wow, are like rags. A green-haired boy was lying on the ground, his right hand and both legs lying on the ground like rags, and next to him, a girl with a bob haircut was looking at him with a worried look on her face. Above the mechanical imaginary enemy, 32's figure slowly emerged, with a pair of vertical pupils looking at the motionless remains of the giant imaginary enemy with interest. Is there really no point for killing this in the exercise monitoring room? The teacher's eyes passed over the name of Hinagawa Jiku. Hinagawa Jiku, points, 75, overall score, 0, and the last one, Midoriya is Yuku, points, 0, overall score, 070. Thanks to the book friend Pants and Sparta for the reward of 100 starting coins. Chapter 174, 32. You may not be able to withstand my attack. Half a month later, the members of class gathered on the sports field, staring blankly at the empty field in front of them. Personality mastery test. What about the opening ceremony? What about the school introduction? What about the principal's long and boring opening speech? Without those things, heroes don't have the time to leisurely carry out some useless ceremonies. Shota Aizawa said expressionlessly, then turned his eyes to the side. What about you, Izil? Why are you here? Qin Ren stood aside, looking at everyone, and replied, I don't have a job, so I came here to take a look. Judging from your recent activities, you should have recovered a long time ago. Shota Aizawa stared with dead fish eyes. Hurry back to your office. I don't think I have recovered yet. Qin Ren expressionlessly, I don't think my injury is healed yet. Just kidding. It's so exciting to watch the plot live. How could they leave just because of a word from you? After staring at Qin Ren for 2 seconds, Aizawa Shota seemed to have given up. He turned his gaze away and turned to the students in Class A. That's the desert hero who's been in the limelight recently, Izil, right? Why is he here? Yes, he should be a teacher at UA, right? He is responsible for playing the 0-point imaginary enemy in our examination room. That move of the giant god soldier looks superimposing. Huh? The one in our examination room is the ethereal ghost teacher. That giant clone is too scary. I couldn't hide from it at all and was killed at the last minute. The one in our examination room is the cement teacher who is responsible for playing the 0-point imaginary enemy. He said that teachers who play the 0-point imaginary enemy all have a fixed route to advance, and as long as they escape the route, they will not be chased. So that's how it is. The one in our examination room is the engineering robot teacher. No wonder he stopped chasing us halfway through. I thought I was hiding and he couldn't find me. The one in our examination room is the giant robot. Midoriya is so awesome. He went up and knocked down the robot directly. Yeah, the classmates talked a lot. Speaking of this, I remembered. Why did you steal my target 3 times? Itatenya turned his gaze to the girl with orange-yellow long hair. I remember her name is Higawara Jiku. Did she steal your target? 3 times. Itatenya raised his glasses, and white light reflected on them. Twice Aoyama was elegant and coquettish. Twice. Shojimzo's arm transformed into a mouth and spoke. 6 times. The boy with light golden hedgehog hair gritted his teeth and stared at Jiku, who was smiling and not taking it seriously under the accusations of everyone. It was because of her that he missed the first place. Kakutsu's points were stolen. Midoriya is Yuku stared with his eyes, looking unbelievable. Yue is really amazing. Who is he? Bakugo Katsuki. The mud incident a month ago. Several people whispered to each other. Shut up. Bakugo Katsuki, who had a bad temper, exploded immediately when he heard someone talking about the mud incident. Shota Aizawa watched the scene silently, thinking about which students to expel. He would not hesitate to expel students he thought had no hope. Teacher Aizawa. So, when should the personality mastery test begin? 32 raised his hand high. Now, glancing at Qin Ren again, Shota Aizawa calmly took out a device similar to a mobile phone from his pocket. You can't use personality tests for physical tests in elementary and junior high schools, right? Everyone nodded. Now, use your personality. Shota Aizawa glanced at the projection screen floating in the air. A total of 22 students. The first one was Higawara Snake. What was your softball score in junior high school? Softball, something similar to baseball, is actually a sport derived from baseball, a bit like throwing a javelin. Grab the ball and throw it as far as you can. I don't know. 32 greeted Qin Ren with a happy face, shaking his hand and answering without looking back. I don't know what you are happy about. Shota Aizawa, who was silent about 32's actions and answers, continued, "Pick up the ball, use your quirk, and use any method to throw the ball as far as possible." "Teacher, do you really have to use all your strength?" Hearing this, 32's snake eyes turned from Qin Ren to Shota Aizawa. "Do you really have to use all your strength?" "Just use it," Shota Aizawa said calmly. "Then I used it." 32 blinked. "I really used all my strength." Turning her head, 32 came to the softball position, grabbed a softball and threw it up. At the same time, her lower body was quickly covered with scales, turning into a thick and long snake tail. Her body rotated, and the tail whipped the softball like a whip. Then, bang! With a loud bang, the entire softball was shattered. The softball, which was as hard as a baseball, was directly shattered into pieces. Countless softball fragments scattered from the air. Class of students and Amp, Qin Ren and Amp, Aizawa Shota. "So this is what you meant by repeatedly asking whether to use all your strength?" Aizawa Shota's face showed a helpless expression. "Don't smash the ball. Try again." The girls who had retreated in fear when they saw her turn into a snake also didn't know whether to laugh or cry. "Don't smash the ball. Don't smash the ball." 32 silently said this, and the long snake tail rolled up a ball and threw it upwards, then repeated the trick, spun the body, and swung the tail on the ball. Bang! The middle part of the softball was dented to the limit at the moment the tail spun, and then flew diagonally upwards. 500, 600, 7,001,000, 15,001,938 meters. The dented softball fell outside the field. Looking at this number, Aizawa Shota was also slightly stunned. 1938 meters? 2 kilometers? Isn't this too exaggerated? How can it be so far? This is too? However, Qin Ren just shook his head. 32 is now equivalent to being able to lift 3 tons of weight, which is close to 30,000 newtons of strength. This is not an exaggeration at all, but a lot less. If the material is harder, it is not a problem to go farther. How to say it? It is no problem to achieve a range of more than 3,000 meters for a large sniper rifle. However, whether the object thrown out can withstand such a force is another matter. After a moment of surprise, Shota Aizawa turned his gaze away from the Higawara snake who had regained his human form and looked at the others. The physical fitness test that cannot use quirks is still used in elementary and junior high schools. It is not scientific. Next, you need to use your quirks to perform 8 tests: throwing a softball, standing long jump, 50-meter sprint, endurance running, grip strength, repeated horizontal jumps, sit-ups, and sit-ups. As he said that, he glanced at Qin Ren. "Izil, instead of standing aside and watching your daughter take the test, why don't you help me?" Without waiting for Qin Ren to answer, he threw the instrument in his hand to Qin Ren. Wait a minute, what kind of logic is this? I'm just watching, but I haven't agreed yet. At this time, Qin Ren suddenly remembered something. He is not a formal staff member, which means that he does not need to be paid, which means he is working for nothing. Damn, he suddenly realized that he lost money. But it seems that he doesn't need money, he only needs gold coins. Okay, then knock out all the teachers in the school as salary. Well reasoned and convincing. P.S. When I write about 32 later, I will call it Snake Jiu. Chapter 175 Personality Mastery Test. The test began. Qin Ren, who was conscripted, began to assist in the personality mastery test with the idea of knocking out all the teachers in the school for salary. 32, who was next to him, was very happy when he saw him being conscripted. The sound of giggling kept coming out, which made Qin Ren want to catch her and beat her up. The first personality test, 50-meter sprint. Higawara snake, Bakugo Katsuki. Qin Ren read out the names in the order of numbers. The two walked to the starting point of the 50-meter race together. Bakugo Katsuki gritted his teeth and stepped on the starting block, then cast a hostile look at Snake half a meter away. He Snake laughed, then blinked, and a snake tongue came out of his mouth, swaying in the air, and the pair of snake eyes flashed with a cold light like a snake. The cold eyes made Bakugo Katsuki feel cold. At this time, Aizawa Shota's weak and low voice sounded, "By the way, the person with the lowest total score will be expelled." "What? The first day of school?" Expelled? This, as expected of you, the style of the top peak is really different. Idatenya raised his glasses. Expel, expel, expel. Midoriya Izuku's teeth trembled. There are a total of 8 projects. After using my quirk, my body will be injured and unable to move. Bakugo Katsuki and Higawara Snake also cast their eyes on Aizawa Shota. Interesting, by Snake, TSK. Then come on. Bakugo Katsuki shook his hands, smashed his left fist and right palm together, and smoke exploded in the palm of his hand. Then, get ready. Qin Ren held a whistle in his left hand and put it in his mouth, raised his right hand, and the quick sign condensed in the sky, forming a giant hand with a width of 10 meters, which made all the students look sideways. Swish! A crisp and sharp whistle sounded at the same time as his voice sounded. The giant palm fell in the shape of a hand knife. Bakugo Katsuki used his legs to jump out, and stretched his hands out like boosters. Go to hell! The sweat secreted from his palms exploded continuously, pushing his body forward and upward continuously, and the whole person moved forward rapidly at a speed of more than 10 meters per second. Victory! It's mine! However, at this moment, a figure behind him caught up with him at a faster speed. Snake's long lower body twisted like a spring, and his body instantly shot out, just like the attack action of a venomous snake biting its prey. Higawara Snake, 3.89 seconds. Bakugo Katsuki, 4.15 seconds. Turning his head, Snake looked at Bakugo Katsuki and chuckled. Hee, a little faster than you. Boom, boom, boom. Bakugo Katsuki clenched his fists, and explosions continued to sound from his hands. His expression was distorted with anger, and he gritted his teeth and whispered, "Damn it, the explosion range of the two hands will be dispersed." Bakugo Katsuki, personality, sweaty hands, no, explosions. The sweat in the palms of his hands mutated, secreting sweat like nitroglycerin, which can be freely exploded. It can create explosions at the places where the palms touch, and it can also convert the blast into propulsion. The power of the explosion is proportional to the degree of sweating, so it is explosive in summer and slow in winter. Qin Ren looked at this scene and shook his head. It took a second just to charge the power. Are you playing tricks on your opponent again? With his current reaction speed of 32 attacks per second, it is quite simple to capture Snake Jayu's movements. He doesn't need to look at the recorder to judge the time. The next group, Todoroki Shido, Yamami. Qin Ren read out the names of the next group. A boy with half red and half white hair and a black-haired girl with a high ponytail came out, with their feet propped on the running blocks and ready. Then, Qin Ren, who once again condensed a giant sand hand to show off, whistled expressionlessly, swish. As the sound accompanied the sand hand falling, a layer of frost began to freeze the track surface from the boy's hands that touched the ground. When he stepped on the starting blocks with both feet and jumped out, a layer of ice skates formed on the soles of his feet, and he slid out like an ice skater. The high ponytail girl's quirk couldn't help her in the sprint. Shito, 4.68 seconds. Yamohai Aku, 6.43 seconds. Todoroki Shido, quirk, half cold and half burning, half flame, half frost. The highest and lowest temperatures are unknown. Yamohai Aku, quirk, creation, can create any substance by consuming the fat in the body, hanging the coffin of scientists. Next group, Idatenya, Aoyama Uaya, the serious model student with glasses and the coquettish blonde boy. Mr. Aoyama, why are you standing upside down? Idatenya waved his arms with his palms straight, a little puzzled. Aoyama Uaya had his hands behind his head, his back facing the finish line. You'll know in a minute, you're so sexy. Qin Ren raised his eyebrows, waved his hands down, and with the whistle sounded again, the two started at the same time. Aoyama Uaya jumped on the spot, and the belt tied to his abdomen shot out a blue laser, pushing his body backwards. And after Idatenya started running in a crouching position, the engines on his legs sprayed out a strong wind, and rushed to the finish line at an extremely fast speed. Idatenya, 3.06 seconds. Hearing the results reported by Qin Ren, Idatenya touched his chin and began to reflect. You can only speed up 3 times in 3 seconds. One more time will only improve by about 5 milliseconds at most. Aoyama Uaya, 5.51 seconds. 5.51 seconds. How can it be so slow? Itatenya looked back with a little doubt. Based on the performance just now, Aoyama should be able to do it within 5 seconds. However, he saw that Aoyama's back and butt were covered with dust. Aoyama classmate, did you fall? He walked over with great concern. It's okay, there are 2 more chances. You can retest. No need. Aoyama showed a coquettish smile. I stopped by myself. The naval laser will shoot for more than 1 second, and I will have diarrhea. On the other side, Aizawa Shota and Qin Ren started another test at the same time. Grip strength. A group of people held the grip strength tester in their right hands. As an extension of his personality, Shoji Mezzo can use 3 hands on one side to grip at the same time. 545 kilograms. Shota Aizawa wrote down the result, then looked at Kirishima Ejiro next to him. 100 kilograms. Good grip strength. The quirk is hardened, but it can't be used effectively in grip strength. Shota Aizawa made a note in his mind. There are heroes who can harden their bodies, and that person can exert a grip strength of 600 kilograms by hardening his muscles. Then there was Himarijaku. I saw Himarijaku's arm had turned into a long snake, tying up the gripper, and then, crack, teacher, it broke accidentally. Himarijaku, whose quirk is snake transformation, can turn any part of his body into a snake. Recalling the information, Shota Aizawa replied expressionlessly, I'm not broken yet. The upper limit of this grip strength tester is 1000 kilograms. Did your hand turn into a python? He recorded it expressionlessly, more than 1000 kilograms. Kirishima Jiro next to him had a passionate smile on his face. Snake Jayu, you are so amazing. Looking at the exaggerated grip strength values of the others, and then looking at the result of his own full grip minus 56 kilograms. Midoriya Izuku wanted to cry but had no tears. His quirk could not sustain the strength, even if he only ate a little like canned food. Wait, only a little? End of this chapter. Thank you very much for reaching the end. Don't forget to like. Looking for more exclusive content and immediate access? Subscribe to our Patreon. Remember, every like, subscription, or donation encourages us to continue. Thanks to everyone. See you in the next video.